Welcome back, my spookies. Tonight we're stepping off the map and into the hunting grounds. Not the safe kind either. I'm talking about the places where the locals whisper about howling things in the dark, where something impossible leaves blood behind in the grass, where ranch legends grow teeth, and where the future itself looks like it was built in a laboratory and then abandoned to monsters. Somewhere out there, a demon dog is answering a killer's call. Somewhere else, something unseen is flattening the wild like it's swatting off toys from a table. And before the night is done, we'll cross paths with a hungry Chupacabra and a battlefield full of creatures that look like evolution took a very, very wrong turn. So, keep your head on a swivel, keep your flashlight charged, and maybe don't go following strange noises into the weeds. And while you're braving the dark with me, make sure you're subscribed on your favorite podcast app, because every Wednesday, a brand new scary story claws its way onto Weekly Spooky. But now, get comfortable. We're about to begin. The Hellhowler by Joe Solmo. From the files of James Becker, case number 6023. The Hellhowler. It was on April 5th that I was first contacted by the client, one Marlene Krause. She came to my office on Church Street just after lunch. I had just eaten a pastrami sandwich. Hard roll mustard. I could tell by her gorgeous green eyes darting around in fear that her lunch had been of the liquid kind. A woman after my own heart. However, it seemed to not have helped her nerves. I offered her a drink from the small fridge by the side of my desk, for emergency purposes only. She said yes, so I popped the top of the bottle and handed it over to her before getting one for myself. "Mr. Becker, I know this is going to sound weird," she started. If I had a dime for every time I heard that sentence, I could have retired years ago. I don't know who I need to see to get paid, though. "Please, call me James," I said. I found it makes me seem less intimidating to be on a first-name basis. I got a mug only a mother could love on a body that exercise has forgotten. My face might have been handsome once, but when you tussle with the paranormal like I do, you get the shit beat out of you. A lot. I'd have to take my shoes off to count how many times I've had my nose broken by some cryptid. I subconsciously tugged my shirt down to make sure my beer belly was hidden from view. I could tell from her looks that something has gotten her scared. She stared at the bracelet on her wrist. It had a Celtic shield knot, used for protection, but I doubt she understood the significance. Not all of these cases end up with an epic showdown with the undead or Bigfoot. Sometimes it's nothing. Regular old bad guys doing bad guy shit. I haven't gotten a read on her at this point, so I sat back and let her tell her story as I enjoyed my post-pastrami beer. "James," she said, and took a long pull from the bottle. She looked down at it. I could tell she wasn't used to slumming around with beer. She was a fine brandy kind of gal. She took a moment to collect herself and looked up at me. I think I'm going to die. We are all going to die, I said with the infamous Becker charm. That's how I get all the ladies. My compassion and the power to speak the wrong thing at the wrong time. Women love assholes, and I am a fucking catch. I mean, soon. I think I'm being hunted, she explained and pushed a lock of her wavy brown hair back behind the cutest ear I've ever seen. I bet her shampoo smelled amazing. Hunted by what? I asked her, taking a drink myself from the bottle. I didn't notice anything off with the flavor. People of refined taste have no taste. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. Last night at home, my husband and I, she started. Husband? I should throw her out of my office, I thought. I couldn't be that cruel. Could I? I mean, don't you go looking into my past for that answer. The answer I'm giving you now is a reluctant no. I guess I won't find my true love on this case either. Maybe the next. What's the address? Address? She asked. Where do you live? I inquired with a raised eyebrow. Oh, we're over in Heaven's Hills, the new development, she answered. Of course she was. That was big money. I didn't think the places were open yet. Only the developer lived up there. It was a town over in Union. I haven't been that way in a while. There really isn't much else out there. I'll come out tonight, Mrs. Krause, just before dark. I'm guessing you are safe until night falls, I asked. 9 times out of 10, whatever paranormal issue these cases have only operates under cover of night. Some are stronger after dark, some die in the sunlight, others just like the aesthetic. I won't know which I'm dealing with until I get out there and can snoop around a bit. How did you know my name? Don't you want to hear the details? She asked confusedly. Is anyone else living over there yet? Or is it just you and your husband, the developer? I'll get all the details tonight when I get there. I'll interview you and your husband. Once I have both stories, I can figure out what we're dealing with here. I am terribly sorry, but I have a very important client I have an appointment with. I kind of lied. Kind of. Of course. Forgive me for barging in like this. I should have called and made an appointment, Marlene said as she stood up. I tried not to get caught gawking at those legs of hers as she made her way to my office door. 7 okay? I called out after her. Perfect, she replied, and when I looked up at her face, she was watching me. Damn it. Too slow on the eye withdrawal. It's been a while since I've been caught gawking. She was sharp. I admired that in my women. Thank you, Mr. Becker. James. I already feel better knowing you are on the case. I gave her an award-winning smile until she closed the door. I finished off my beer, sat down, and put my feet on my desk. Time for that appointment, I thought, and drifted off for a few hours. I needed my beauty sleep. I know what you're thinking. What an asshole. But let me explain. Since I was a kid, I could kinda feel the paranormal, catch glimpses of the things that lurk in your bedroom at night. Most people go their whole lives without seeing any of that shit. I've pretty much seen it all, and let me tell you, it's fucking frightening. I don't get much sleep at night when those things like to do their business. I catnap during the day, just to get by. Oh, and once those things know you can see them, they don't leave you the fuck alone. Even friendly ghosts get lonely, and you are the only thing that can see them other than cats. Yeah, not a lot of downtime. Don't get me started on the darker beings. After my nap, I hunted around for more info on the Krauses. Sometimes good old detective work gets me all the information I need for a case. But in this instance, they seemed squeaky clean. I don't like my rich people to be good, too. Makes the world not fair. No Faustian deal with the devil or stepping on the backs of others to get there. Sometimes life just doesn't make sense. I grabbed my keys and a fresh bottle from the mini fridge with a mental note to restock. That I know I won't remember until it was too late, and headed out the door. It was still cold out, not the frozen tundra of a northeast winter, but a transition towards spring. I regretted not grabbing my coat about 4 seconds after getting in the car, but I refused to go back on principle. I drove up the long, steep dirt road leading to the development, past the field of stumps that used to be a forest, and up I went until I was nearly at the top of Heaven's Hill's namesake hill. There stood the only house that had actually been built up there. It was large and white, and had columns so you knew it was from money. It had a circular driveway, a 2-car attached garage, and a fountain in front that wasn't working yet. A well-maintained frontage greeted me as I exited my shitbox 1978 Dodge Omni. People ask me how it still runs after all these years. It's part Dodge engineering, part owner love, part incantations and the blood sacrifice of the mice that tried to winter in it, or steal the dropped fries from under the seat, I tell them. That usually makes them go away and talk to someone else. To be honest, I have no idea why it works, and I'm not questioning it. It's been paid off for a long time and still starts when it needs to. The door opened as the last sputters of the mostly replaced Mopar engine died out. A man stood at the entrance wearing a tux. I suddenly felt underdressed in the same stained t-shirt I met Mrs. Krause in earlier. "Could you tell Mrs. and Mr. Crouch that James Becker has arrived?" I asked the butler. He gave me a particular look and motioned me inside. In the foyer, Marlene Krause waited, wearing a cocktail dress and holding a wine glass in her hand. Her brown wavy hair surrounded her beautiful face and hung halfway down her torso. It took me a moment to take my eyes off her. I could see the curve of her lips as a hint of a smile crossed it. She was amused by me. "Dear, Mr. Becker is here," the man in the tux said. I turned toward him. "Oh, you're Mr. Krause." I saw the tux and thought. I started to explain. "That I was the butler?" he asked, a little annoyed. "Well, yes," I said unabashedly. "I am sorry, we have an engagement we must attend tonight. We can give you about an hour, Mr. Becker, before we must leave," he said. I was going to tell him to call me James, but fuck him. I didn't like him from the start. "Oh, James, come sit with us in here," Mrs. Krause said, and entered a room off the hall. It held several comfy-looking sofas and a table with a bottle of booze. "Make yourself a drink," she finished. I walked over to the table and eyed my choices. Some of these I had never heard of, and the ones I had never drunk. I chose one at random, something called Knob Creek. I poured half a glass and joined them on the sofas. I had never sat on something so soft. I pulled a notepad from my pants pocket. I like the old school feel of writing down everything myself. I remember facts better that way. Cell phones are spotty at best out here anyway. I took a big gulp of the Knob Creek and gave them a smile as they watched me. I'm pretty sure they didn't see my eye tear up. Let's start with names and occupations, I said. Marlene Krause, housewife. John Krause, land developer, they said. Okay, John, Marlene. Can you tell me what happened last night? Let's start with John, I asked. Sure, John said, and straightened his tux. We were walking on the nature trail after dinner to see the scenic beauty of Heaven's Hills, John began. You don't have to sell it to me, I said. Did your company make the trail? Not exactly. We found the trail when we were surveying it and made it wider and more accessible so the residents of Heaven's Hills would enjoy it. Anyway, it was after dinner and not too far from sunset, and we were near the top of the ridge to the south when a cold wind blew, and we both felt like we were being watched. I stood up as I listened to John's story and walked over to the mantel. There was a small wolf figurine there, looking freshly carved. I picked it up to examine it. Did you hear anything? Branches breaking or grunts? I asked as I turned the figure over in my hand. Tell him about the roars, Marlene interrupted. Not so much a roar as a howl, like a dog or a... John explained. Wolf? I interrupted, showing them the figure. Yeah, it carried on the wind, but it was faint. I had stepped off the trail to take a quick leak, and I heard it. It's hard to say for sure which direction it came from, John continued. There hasn't been a wolf around this area for 100 years, I explained, and set the figure down on the mantel. I'm just telling you what I heard, Marlene said with a pout. Sorry, I didn't mean to indicate I thought you were lying, I apologized. She still sat there, beautifully pouty. John was a lucky man. Continue, I said to John. Soon after that, we decided to head back, but we both kept looking over our shoulders. We realized we were walking faster than normal. Both of us felt like we were being followed. It was most unsettling, John said. Still no grunts or rocks being thrown? Trees being hit by other trees in the distance? I asked, thinking I had an idea of what it might have been. What do you think it is, Becker? John asked. Well, sometimes there are things in nature that don't like man's encroachment. Things that can be territorial. I've seen a dozen Sasquatch cases that start like yours, but they usually have rocks being thrown or other aggressive behavior. So far, you haven't actually seen anything, correct? I asked. No, nothing, James, Marlene said. Ah, she remembered my name. I may have floated off the floor just a little bit. I'll tell you what. Why don't you two head out to your event that you're so dressed up for, and I'll take a walk down this trail and see what I can find. We can reconvene in the morning, I told them. Be careful, James, Marlene said. Oh, if you fancy that figure, go ahead and take it. I don't want to think about wolves right now. I picked up the figurine again and told them thanks and slipped it into my pocket. Where did you get it, if I might ask? From a shop in town. A woman carves them herself. When we were driving around looking for a land to develop, we stopped in and thought it was a charming little shop. We picked it up as a souvenir of our faith in our investment and future, John explained, and then excused himself. Marlene walked up to me, so close I could smell her shampoo this time. It was apple-scented. I was glad I was wearing glasses to keep my eyes from popping out of my head as I snuck a glance at the cleavage in front of me. "Thank you, James. I feel better knowing you are on the case. Please, if there is anything I can do, don't hesitate to ask." It gained about 1,000 degrees in that room, I swear. "I'll get this whole thing figured out. You have nothing to worry about. I'm a professional," I said, and downed the rest of the Knob Creek and placed my glass on the table. "I'll have the butler take care of it," Marlene said, with a sultry smile. My face reddened, which I didn't think was possible, since all my blood was differently located at the time. I found my way back out to the car to get some supplies. I grabbed my on-the-go pack, which included such occupational necessities as holy water, silvered blades, dowsing rods, not the kind used for water, and various other stoppered bottles of various concoctions, and more modern-day toys like a drone and a Kindle. Why an e-reader, you may ask? Well, when you need that one ancient tome to save the world, and you have mere minutes left to do so, you do not want to have left it behind at home base, do you? Besides, all these old books were heavy, and not to mention a fire hazard. It sure is a pain in the ass to digitize some of those tomes, but it has saved my ass more than once when dealing with ancient pseudo-deities and prophecy. I didn't expect to need it on the trail, but I tucked it into the front pocket anyway. I slung one of the straps over my shoulder, then the other, shifted the weight around until it was as comfortable as possible, and groaned at the incline of the start of the trail. It looked like it crested the hill behind the Kraus house. Ha! It didn't take long for me to get to the wooded part of the trail. Most of the development was happening further down, with the Krauses building their mansion to lord over all below. I did notice that the path was wide and smooth, and saw skid steer tracks on the packed dirt. The occasional uprooted tree lay next to the path, and gave me a great place to sit and catch my breath, even if it was just a modest incline I had vanquished. It was quiet up here, and I could feel a slight breeze. Even though it wasn't much above freezing, it was welcomed on my sweating skin. Occasional bird chirps and small sticks breaking I could make out through my own labored breathing. Typical woods noise, nothing to be frightened about. I have spent many a night in the woods hunting the paranormal, and I don't spook easily. Once I could concentrate, I closed my eyes and focused in on my gift, looking for signs of anything out here in the woods that might be from another realm or a cryptozoologist's dream, but felt nothing. I decided I would go down a bit further, at least to where the Krauses had said they got the eerie feeling, before I headed back to the car. I took a sip from the half-empty water bottle I found on the floor of the Dodge. It was mostly refreshing and not gross at all. I shouldered my pack and moved a little further along the path. It had mostly flattened out, to my relief. I found the hike actually enjoyable, even if my body was wondering why I was putting it through the torture. I decided to ignore my lungs and beating heart and just enjoy the view. That's when I crossed it. What it exactly was, I didn't know. A boundary of sorts. I could feel the creepiness fixating on me as I scanned the woods for any sign of life or even unlife. There are many boundaries in the world. Some are easily defined, like rivers, or the Great Wall of China. Others only certain people can perceive, like thresholds and ley lines. I gave myself a moment to try to identify the energy. Was it natural? Was it occult related? It was slippery, really hard to get a bead on. Just then I heard feet crunching the sand on the trail. I saw an older woman coming towards me. She had one of those Taco Bell dogs on a leash. Its bug eyes looked up at me, and it started to bark. "D'Artagnan, stop it!" she called out to her pet, giving a gentle tug on his leash. It gave a little growl, making eye contact with me, before sitting next to her leg. Could this be the howl the Krauses had heard? "Hello there. Thanks for calling him off," I said with a smile. "My name is James Becker," I said, and held out my hand. The woman looked down at one hand holding the leash and the other an old, gnarled walking stick, then back to me. My hand retreated into my pocket in embarrassment. "Tara," the woman responded. "Are you from the development?" "Heaven's Hills?" "Heavens, no," I joked. She didn't think I was funny. I wish I was back at my office with another pastrami sandwich and beer. "They took the nature trail and widened it. I've been walking it for years. It was always wide enough for me and D'Artagnan before. Don't see why they had to improve it," she said. "I don't know either." "You walk this trail often?" I asked. "For years," she replied coldly. "So you said." I didn't feel anything coming off of either her or her dog. At least, nothing that stood out more than the boundary which was still making my senses go haywire. "The trail used to lead to that lake down there, through the woods. I used to go and feed the ducks," she explained. "I thought bread was bad for them," I said, trying to engage her. "I said nothing about bread. If you're not from the development, then why are you on the trail?" she asked. "The Krauses hired me to investigate a possible dangerous animal on the trail. They said they felt like they were being followed the other night. Do you think D'Artagnan here might have gotten off his leash and came after them with all the fury of a Crunchwrap Supreme?" I asked. "He never leaves my side," Tara responded. She was a real talker. "Say, how much further does this trail go before turning back toward Heaven's Hills?" I asked. "About a mile. It dips down the other side of the ridge for a bit, then climbs back up behind where they built their house," she answered. "More uphill. Great. I think I'll just turn back," I said, and slipped a crystal just off the trail. I didn't think she noticed. I'll come back for it tomorrow and see what kind of energy it absorbed. It might help me figure out what kind of boundary this is, and what exactly I am dealing with. "Have a good one," I said, and gave the woman a wave. I turned to go back to my car. I felt 100 times better after crossing that boundary again. Just as I turned a curve in the path, I caught the woman in my peripheral. She had not moved from that spot and was watching me. What a weirdo, I thought. I gave her another wave and a smile before starting the descent down to the Kraus house. She never waved back. She probably thought the same of me. Could she be the culprit? Maybe it wasn't a cryptid that chased them. Maybe it was some witch that marked a piece of land to chase off developers. She sure was crabby enough. Well, that's not fair. There are plenty of witches I know that are pleasant to be around. I got back to the car and threw the pack in the hatchback of the Omni. I had some leads to start. Like, what is that boundary? Will the town property records show me something there that might help? Do my spiritual friends know this Tara? Did the figurine fit into the equation? Do I have any chance with Mrs. Krause? Sadly, I already knew the answer to the last one. A resounding no. Maybe when I write my memoirs, though, maybe then I can pencil it in. I slept in the next morning. My head felt like it had been kicked in. I searched around for my glasses, which happened to be on the top of my head. Not sure how they didn't get crushed last night. I made my way through the empty bottles and open ancient texts to the bathroom and took a piss in the dark. My eyes weren't ready for the daylight yet. I made my way to the fridge and found a Gatorade in there. It looks like drunk me was thinking of the future. I thanked myself and drank it down, hoping it would curb the hangover a little bit. On my desk, I found the drunken scribblings of a half-crazy paranormal investigator. Good thing I could read my own handwriting. I picked it up and commanded my eyes to focus. It took a few minutes for them to listen. Find answers to case. Sometimes I really am proud of myself. I popped on the TV, volume on mute as I waited for the hangover to subside. I woke up again about 2 p.m. and realized it had been a day or two since I had showered. I went into the bathroom and cleaned myself up, made myself human again, even took the time to shave. It had been at least a week since I'd done that. I read over my notes taken at the Krauses and headed out the door. I had a few stops to hit this afternoon, and the day was getting away from me. Once I had gotten a fresh sandwich and beer from Herschel's Deli, I drove over to Union to check out the shop that sold the figurines. I didn't really get a sense of anything from the wolf, but it was better to be safe than sorry. I sat in the Omni finishing my sandwich and beer before heading over to the shop. Casey's Curios, it was called. I opened the door and a little bell rang. Every step I took on the old wooden floor creaked ominously, and I wondered how far a fall into the basement actually was as I scanned the cluttered room. In most of these kinds of places, you will find some kind of artifact giving off energy. People who aren't perceptive to that kind of thing might still feel uneasy and decide to donate or sell an item without knowing the why. A few hit me right away, but nothing that seemed in any way related to the case. I found the display of carved figurines and gave them more scrutiny as I heard the creaking coming from behind me. "Find something you like?" came the voice from behind me. I turned and was surprised to see a familiar face. "Tara, was it?" I asked. "It was, and still is," she said as she passed me and went behind the counter. "Where is D'Artagnan? Not a great watchdog, eh?" I joked, or at least I thought I did. You couldn't tell from her reaction. "At the vet. Found a tick on him, getting it checked out," Tara replied with all the warmth of the Arctic Circle. "Well, I am sorry to hear that. Anyway, as I said yesterday, I was looking into some wild animals up in Heaven's Hills for the Krauses, and I found this in their study," I said, producing the wolf figurine. "And you think that was following them? They could probably outrun something so small," she asked me. What a comedian. Well, I found it curious that they had a wolf figurine on their mantle and said they had heard howling on the wind. I thought I would check out where the figurine came from, I replied. "Let me know if any of these make a sound. I'll charge another $5, Tara said, and opened a shipping box that had been on the counter. She pulled a locket out and set it down. I could feel the energy emitting from it. "That's a nice locket," I said, focusing more on it. Sometimes it was hard when there were other things around, like the boundary last night. I put the other items out of mind using an exercise I learned when I was little and focused my attention in front of me. I was surprised to find 2 distinct auras. One was from the locket, and it screamed of divination magic. It was used recently to find someone. I caught glimpses of a woman's face, but it flashed by too fast for me to see. Wonder who sent that to Tara. Usually, when someone with the talent finds an item, they don't let it go. Unless they were asking a huge favor of someone, and they traded a magical item for said favor. The other aura was coming from Tara herself. I tuned into that. She was a dabbler. She wasn't very powerful, but she did indeed dabble in magic. There was some residual magic coming from her now, faint. It had been a few days since she had tried anything. It had the smell of summoning magic. With dabblers, sometimes they get the idea, but not the nuance of what they are doing. She could have been trying to summon a demon or a lost loved one in a seance, even though that isn't the proper way to do it. "Did they give you that to return?" Tara asked. "No, they loaned it to me," I replied. "Do you remember when they were in here? Mister, I get a lot of people coming and going. Weirdos, I remember, like people asking me if my figurines can howl. But a tourist couple, 1,000 of those walk through my shop every summer," Tara explained. Ouch. "Well, thank you for your time," I said, and headed for the door. "Not going to buy anything?" she called after me. I knew she was just trying to guilt me into buying something, and I am a sucker, so it worked. I remembered her story about the ducks in the lake and picked up a duck figurine. I slipped a crystal under the display, covering the move with my back to Tara. $15, she said as I placed the figurine duck on the counter and put her hand out, open palm. I reached into my wallet and slapped her a 20. "Keep the change in case it quacks," I said, and turned back towards the door. Nothing. The woman has no sense of humor. The day had really gotten away from me. The sun was going to go down soon. Just enough time to go get my crystal on the trail and head over to Krause's. I set the duck figurine on the seat next to me and headed up to Heaven's Hills. I got to the boundary just as the sun dipped behind the hills. It hit me like a ton of bricks again, and in the fading light, I had to use my cell phone's flashlight to find the crystal. It was clear when I dropped it in the leaves. It was now striped red and black. That's not a good sign. Red and black are the dominion of the abyss. All the levels of hell from any religion you can think of belongs there. You add that to summoning magic aura from earlier, and you usually get yourself a demon. Why couldn't it have been a Sasquatch? I had a bottle of pheromones on me to get a wild, horny teenage squatch to follow me farther from humanity and deeper into the woods primordial. That would have been an easy job. But nope, it has to be a goddamned demon. The thing about demons is, they are tricky. Was the summoning magic around Tara because she was summoning a demon, or was it because she was summoned? Did the aura being faint mean it was strong on an object in her shop and rubbed off? Either way, the boundary had hellish energy, and I needed to step out of it to think without its negative energy bombarding me. I made my way down the trail about 70 feet or so, far enough to think straight, but still within sight of the boundary's position. I twirled the crystal in my hands, as if looking it over for answers, when truly there was no more information it could give me. I pocketed it and headed down the trail toward the Krauses. I could see the porch light through the trees when I felt a twitch of magical energy. Then, heard a scream. I ran as fast as my out-of-shape bulk could move, and it was only 30 seconds or so before my foot hit the boards of the porch. Marlene was laying on the floor, clutching her arm. I could see the crimson flow from between her fingers, just above her bracelet. John was in an Adirondack chair. He, too, was clutching himself as blood flowed. "What happened?" I asked, looking over the scene. "It attacked us!" John called out. I pulled his hand away from his left forearm. There were deep punctures there, and scratches, defensive wounds from an animal attack. I could feel the heat coming from the wound, and steam rose from the crimson ribbons of flesh. It didn't feel that cold out to cause steam from the warm body. I grabbed my handkerchief and flask from my bag and wrapped his arm, then turned my attention to Marlene. "What was it?" I asked them. "It was too dark to see, but it definitely was some kind of animal. We heard the howl again just before Marlene came out with the drinks," John said, pointing at the spilled tray and glasses on the porch floor. "Interesting. I didn't hear anything, and I was just up the trail over there," I said. I sure as hell felt something, though. It was too quick to get a fix on.
More scares to come. Weekly Spooky will be right back.
Those cuts would scar up severe. I treated her wound the same way and looked around for evidence. "It hit me from behind and landed right on John. I got my arms up to protect my face," Marlene said as I surveyed the scene. On the railing, I found a tuft of black hairs. I quickly grabbed a baggie from my pack and collected it with tweezers. I dropped the baggie on the porch and bent to pick it up. When I did, I noticed the prints on the wood. I took out my phone and snapped a few pics. "What is it?" Marlene asked. "Prints of our suspect," I said, looking at the canine footprints burned into the wooden porch. How many in the universe could leave prints like these, you ask? There is a very short list. A hellhound. Well, now we know what was summoned. The question now is, why? What did Tara have against John and Marlene Krause? The development would be my first guess. Usually that's all the guess I need. I'm not being conceited here. I'm just good at my job. Summoning a hellhound takes a specialist, a long-time practitioner, not just some curious teens like you see in a horror movie. This person would need years of training from knowledgeable people, a cult or sect hidden away, and I didn't know of any around here. That doesn't mean they don't exist, just that I was unaware. So, is Tara my Hellhowler? The person that brought this beast here? Or is there another player I haven't met yet? I would say intriguing, but what I really would be thinking is, for fuck's sake, why can't these cases ever be easy? The next day I slept in, sensing a pattern. This time I wasn't just up all night drinking. In fact, last night I was up all night drinking and reading up on hellhounds and how to stop them. There was surprisingly limited documentation on them, even though myths of them have been around since antiquity. Before starting my binge, reading, I dropped in with an old friend to learn more about the Hellhowler. Madame Stacy made most of her money telling fortunes at Renaissance fairs, psychic fairs, and craft shows, as well as other events, but she was the real deal, unlike most of them on that circuit. Since she had been around and seen a lot of things, and much like me, found steady work here with all the conduits of the paranormal that seemed to intersect in our little slice of America, I pulled out my phone and opened the picture I took of one of Madame Stacy's books. She wouldn't let me touch them, let alone borrow them, which, to be honest, is probably a good thing. That is the other reason for the Kindle. I can't keep a book's binding intact for more than a week, no matter how careful I was with them. They just disintegrate under my care. I pinched the screen and zoomed in on the left column of the page. Hellhowler, a specific spellcaster with a knack for summoning from the abyss. This person can imbue their emotions into their magic, asking for help from the lower planes. Powerful Hellhowlers can summon up to Class 5 demons. If they work in tandem, a coven of Hellhowlers could summon even more powerful entities. There is a rumor of a shadow mass that can be conducted with 99 Hellhowlers to draw a prince of hell to the summoning circle to answer 3 questions. As with any summoning ritual, if done incorrectly, or without the right amount of power, control of the summoned entity will falter, and in most cases, it will turn on the summoner. Found in several cultures, many use their powers for political assassinations or shows of power. Cultures with blood rituals and human sacrifices are common places to find Hellhowlers. Known Hellhowlers have been found among the Aztecs, Canaanites, Celts, and Germanic peoples, for example. Below was a picture of a woman in an open robe with her arms in the air. In the center of a magic circle in front of her was a tornado of flames, with sinister eyes looking back at her. Well, that didn't really tell me what to do to stop one. I guess I'll have to throw the kitchen sink at it when I confront it. The kitchen sink is what I call a concoction of all the usual monster killers. Holy water, wolf's bane, iron supplements, and minced garlic are the main ingredients. Smells like shit, but it gets the job done. Most of the time. I rifled through my books on ways to protect Marlene from the summoned beast, made a quick list, and headed back to Madame Stacy for the items I didn't have myself. Having hair from the beast provided us with some material to make a charm out of. In a perfect world, that should be enough, but since we don't know who summoned it, there really was no telling. Madame Stacy and I worked on the charm for most of the afternoon, before I realized I had not eaten anything today. My stomach groaned its displeasure. "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" I asked Madame Stacy as she looked up from the charm. My stomach had interrupted her spell. "You go grab us a couple of sandwiches so I can finish this in peace," she said. I had only interrupted her a few times with questions. "What do you want?" I asked the mystic as I watched a woman at the front window peeking in. Madame Stacy put a closed sign up so we could get this done before tonight. "Pastrami, hard roll, mustard," she said, and went back to work. I should propose right now. If only she were a little younger. She was older than the Omni. I slipped out of the side door not only because that was where the aforementioned shitbox was parked, but this way I didn't have to confront the customer at the door. I'd much rather confront an angry ghoul feasting on corpses in the local cemetery than deal with living, breathing people. They're so much harder to get a handle on, what with their schemes and lies. I pulled out onto the street and headed the few blocks west to the deli. Yeah, I could have walked, but this was more efficient. I walked into the deli a hero. They thought something had happened to me because they haven't seen me yet today. That says a lot more about me than it does their friendliness, I think. When I told them I needed 2, they all made mocking faces, which to me said, "Whoa, look at the big boy getting 2 sandwiches." They didn't believe me when I said one was for a friend, even when I got 2 drinks. Maybe I'll see if Madam Stacy can put a minor curse on them. Maybe make all their wives grow mustaches or something. I grabbed the bag and was back at the shop within 20 minutes. Stacy had finished the charm for Marlene to wear. A necklace. It also had the Celtic shield knot, like Marlene's bracelet. We finished our late lunch as we went over the defenses I was going to put up in the Krause's home. I was running out of time. I wanted to stop over at Tara's shop again to get a better feel on her and what talent she might have with the magical arts. With a reluctant hug, the only payment beyond the sandwich Madam Stacy wanted, I was on my way to Tara's shop. I should get there in time to ask her some questions. I gotta start setting an alarm so I don't sleep the days away. I usually fight the evil at night, but the day is crucial prep time. Maybe I should just stock up on caffeine pills, since I'm not one for coffee. I had a few hours of daylight still when I parked in front of Tara's store, Casey's Curios in Union. Her sign said they were open to 5, just enough time to get home around dark this time of year. You know, maybe to give directions to your pet hellhound, who was somehow disguised as a chihuahua named D'Artagnan. Although that would be a funny scenario, it was very unlikely. I didn't detect any camouflage magic on the dog when we first met, and if I was dealing with a football-sized hellmutt, the scratches would have been on the Krause's legs, not arms. How would it have reached? Trampoline or a Puchapult? I opened the squeaking door of the Omni and made my way inside the building. Tara was behind the counter, polishing what looked like an antique tea set. If she could see the spirit attached to it, I couldn't tell. The apparition turned towards me with the kind of hatred only the eyes of the dead can show, and whispered curses at me. I wasn't impressed. I've dealt with tougher ghosts. I ignored her, and it made her angrier by the string of curse words coming out of her mouth. My father was a trucker, and my mom was a whore, and I think they both would have blushed. "No refunds if it didn't quack," Tara said dryly, before putting the teapot back in an old leather case. As soon as she did, the apparition disappeared. "No, it quacks just fine. A satisfied customer," I said back at her. She raised an eyebrow, then lowered it. "You want a different animal? Perhaps a whale song to put you to sleep," she said sarcastically, while putting the case on a stack of other boxes behind her, under some wooden shelves with various products on them. "I wanted to check up on D'Artagnan," I explained. She raised the other eyebrow. She was eyebrow dexterous. She nodded towards the back of the store. Sitting on an antique Bergeret chair was the canine in question, sleeping away. He was wearing a red and blue superhero costume, complete with cape. "Glad he's doing okay," I said. "Hey, I have a question for you." "Oh yeah?" she asked, opening another cardboard box that had arrived with today's packages. "Yeah, have I come to the right place for Athame?" Her eyes narrowed as she scrutinized the sincerity of my inquiry. "What do you need it for?" she asked. "For a blood ritual," I lied. "Over by the cauldrons, last table on the back wall," she explained. "My Wiccan mom would kill me if I ever used Athame to draw blood. Tara doesn't know shit about fuck when it comes to proper use. I think my original assessment was correct. She was a dabbler at best. Well, shit. Then who is the Hellhowler? I glanced through her product. She did have some decent stuff, and wherever she's getting her shipments from, they are top-notch. Too bad she doesn't know what to do with them. She could take over the county with the amount of spiritual firepower in this room alone. I wonder what she keeps in back. The Krauses, I started, turning over a blade in my hand. It was too polished, too finished for me. I prefer the old-world craftsmanship with my ritual implements. What do you know of them? Nothing, really. They came in here boasting how they were going to change our town for the better, and all the local shops were soon going to have lines out the door. They bought that figurine and told me they were about to make a deal to make my life better. Usual out-of-town snobs, Tara replied. Who is Casey? I asked, as it just now occurred to me that this place wasn't named after her. My husband. Been in the ground 10 years, she said. He used to handle antiques and the like here. He liked to fix up older stuff to make it shine again. He let me sell my stuff here, too. He knew you practiced? I asked. I told him I did, and that was good enough for him. He didn't want to know any more. Gave me my space to do what I wanted, Tara replied. I found an older-looking bowline and grabbed some candles. Sometimes these things come in handy. I made my way back through the rows of items to the counter. I placed the crescent-bladed object down, then set the candles next to them. Anything else? Tara asked as she rang me out and put my items in a paper bag. Do you have anything for summoning spells, wands, stuff like that? Tara narrowed her eyes at me again. I could tell she really didn't like me poking into her business. Summoning magic is dangerous. I would leave that to the professionals, she answered. True, but if one was going to try, I hinted. I would suggest they don't, was her reply. Point taken. Thank you again, Tara. My condolences for Casey, I said, and paid for the bowline. I now had all I needed for tonight. Some shop owners make it hard to want to support local business, though. Tara was a downright miserable person, but I don't think she is the Hellhowler. Who else could the Krauses have pissed off? I wondered, as I fired up the Omni. I got to the client's house about 2 hours before sunset, just enough time to prepare for the impending attack. When I pulled in the driveway, John was out front, so I had him help me unload several of my musty duffel bags from the hatchback. What do you have in here, Becker? Decade-old gym clothes? He said as he got a whiff of the contents. You got me. I was hoping to get some laundry done while we wait, I joked, but it went right over Mr. Sourpuss's face. I guess I would be serious too if there was an infernal beast hunting my wife in a few hours. I gave him a pass. This time. Where's Marlene? I asked. Mrs. Kraus will be home shortly. I advised her to get a hotel tonight, but she insisted on being here. I don't know why. I would prefer she was out of danger, John said. Don't worry, John. We won't let anything happen to her, I reassured. I could tell by his face, though, that I failed. I began rummaging through the stinky bags to get set up. I grabbed a baggie of red brick dust and began to scatter it in the doorway. Are you going to clean that up afterward? John asked. Honestly, probably not, but I am sure you have a maid come in at least once a week, I said, and grabbed the baggie with a mix of garlic, sage, and lavender. Why have the smells spread out through the house when I can combine them all together right here? Once I profoundly stunk up the joint, I started to use the bowline to carve some symbols into the candles I had just picked up. Standard protection stuff, nothing too crazy. I wanted a bastion of protection in case I needed to bide my time with the creature once I face it. Sometimes I'm not the fastest thinker on my feet, but give me a month to prepare and I'm fucking Batman. I placed a Hamsa hand above the kitchen sink and sprinkled a little more of the brick dust. I didn't have enough dust to give the house a good redding, but I got most of the first door. John mostly followed me around, sighing at everything I was doing, until he heard Marlene come in through the garage. That reminded me. I ran over to the door to the garage and sprinkled my protection magic cocktail. Marlene watched me with both interest and amusement, it seemed, or she was smiling at me for another reason. Nah, she wasn't interested in me. That was only in my dreams, no one else's. She was the client and I had to be professional, I told myself. That was why we could never be together. Focus, Becker, focus. I snapped out of it and continued to work around the house. An hour later, I was just about done when Marlene came to me in the kitchen by the garage door. "How are things progressing?" she asked in that sultry voice. "Almost done here. We got the house on lockdown. No way that creature is going to find its way in here," I said. Not past all the protection I put up. I was rather proud of myself. "Hungry?" she asked and went to the fridge. She pulled out a pound of pastrami and set it on the counter next to some hard rolls. She knew me. "I could eat," I understated. "Here, have a seat. I'll make you a sandwich," she said, and pulled a knife out of the block to cut the rolls. I took a load off and realized I had been working right along pretty good. I mentally checked off items on my list and realized I was done. I looked at my watch. I had 22 minutes until sunset and the chance of attack. With everything I read on these hounds, they are usually spotted over 3 days. The summoning only lasts that long. If they fail, they don't go back to hell. They simply cease to exist. So there is the motivation for escalation of attacks. The final one should be tonight. I just had to make sure it wasn't a fatal one. I looked over at the other smelly duffel bag in the hall, the one I haven't opened yet. It held the best line of defense. Basically, a wholly rolled up newspaper to hit it on the snout with and say, "Bad dog," or "Bad hellhound." Well, that sounds more appealing than what it actually was. Supernatural beings aren't always pretty, and neither are the tools and weapons used to fight or subdue those beings. I know what I had in the bag wasn't going to win any craftsmanship awards. It looked like total shit, but none of that matters as long as it gets the job done. "Here you go." Marlene smiled warmly and sat down next to me at the table. I could smell her perfume. "Thank you," I said, and looked down at the sandwich. She must have given me half of the meat I saw her take out of the fridge. "Wow, now that is a sandwich," I said, and held it out at arm's length admirably. "Don't drop it," she said, as it started to slip from my hands. She grabbed for it and ended up putting her hands around mine. Her skin was soft and warm. Very warm. "You feeling okay?" I asked. "Under the circumstances, yes," she replied, and gave me an award-winning smile. I melted in my chair and puddled on the floor to bask in her glory. I snapped out of it when I realized I had spicy brown mustard on my shirt. Humbling. "Oh dear," she said, and grabbed a paper towel. She wet it in the sink and returned to me. rubbing the damp paper product on my shirt. She was so close, I could smell her hair. "What's that?" I asked, and backed up as her husband entered the room. He carried the rest of the candles I had carved protection runes in, and a box of matches. I could smell the sulfur of the matches waft by my nose. If he cared I was that close to his wife, he didn't let on. Man, I would be furious. I finished placing them on the second floor. I had these left over. "Where do you want them?" John asked. I pointed to the next room. "Most likely the creature will come to one of the doors. I'd place them near the front entrance. The door is made of glass and vulnerable," I told him. He nodded and headed out to the foyer. "If you will excuse me," Marlene said, "I have to go powder my nose." "Consider yourself excused," I said, and gave her a bow as I stood up. I think I heard something crack in my back. I am getting too old to fight monsters. I realized I had forgotten to give her the charm we both worked so hard on earlier. I guess it can wait until she's out of the bathroom. I used to imagine rich clients like these would be so grateful that they would throw handfuls of cash on me, and if I just stuck with it, I could retire in a few years. But those few years have doubled and doubled again, and I'm still living one pastrami sandwich at a time. If I can stop this Hellhowler from completing its goal and killing Marlene, then I know they would pay. That wasn't the question. I just know from previous experience it's never enough. While Marlene was out of the room and no longer distracting me, I went over my list again to make sure I had all the bases covered. As I was mentally checking off the last of the list, I heard a commotion from the foyer and ran out there. John had dropped a candle, and it had broken. "What happened?" I asked. "I burnt myself. I should have waited to light it until I placed the damn thing." He showed me his finger. I tried to remember what compassion was like and did my best to show him. The sound came from everywhere at once. The howl rang through my head, sending flashing images of my own gruesome death at the claws of the beast being summoned. I caught glimpses of the animal's point of view as it closed in from the forest path. I heard the snort of its nostrils, trails of smoke rising from the nasal orifices. It covered ground fast and would be here in seconds. "Where's Marlene?" John asked with a scared expression. "Powdering her nose," I responded. "I'm right here," she said, entering the foyer with us while looking over her shoulder. I glanced at the door to make sure we had enough protection coverage even with the broken candle. We were good. "We should move to an interior room, if possible, barricade ourselves in until I can assess the situation," I explained. "This way through the kitchen," Marlene suggested, and we followed. I grabbed my bag on the way through. As we passed through the kitchen, another flash of the beast's point of view entered my mind. I could see Marlene's car sticking out of the garage. She had left the door open. It was a good thing I reddened the kitchen door that led to the attached garage, I thought as I double-checked my work. "Ah, fuck," I said elegantly. There was a break in the dust as if someone was dragged through it, enough to break the protection. Just then, a bang struck the door. I watched it move from the impact. "Get behind me!" I called out and reached into my bag of tricks. I pulled out a shillelagh, infused with protection magic, and faced the door as it began to splinter. I ran over my movements in my head and couldn't figure out how I scuffed the red brick dust. Rookie mistake screwing up your own circles and lines. If I survived this, I told myself. I wouldn't put that part in my report. A moment later, a large black and red furred paw pierced the wooden door. Its claws had to be 4 inches long. I whacked it with the shillelagh and heard a sizzle and a howl from the other side. It wasn't the same howl as earlier, which means the Hellhowler had to be close. After all, I had heard its call. No time for window peeking to see who might be outside right now, though. I turned my eye from the door for just a second to see John and Marlene still standing there. "Get in the room!" I yelled out. That was all the distraction the unholy beast needed as it launched its mass through the door and barreled into me. I landed on my ass on the hard tile floor, the beast's jaws inches from my throat. The only thing that stopped it was the shillelagh held in my hands across its slobbery jaws. Definitely not the damned Chihuahua, I thought. Did I see any stray St. Bernards around? In reality, it didn't resemble any dog breed or even wolf. It was larger, smelled like brimstone and death, and had tiger stripes of black on a body of short red fur. It was at least the size of a mastiff, if not bigger. It had 3 black eyes staring at me as I pushed up with all my might, trying to keep that maw away from my face. I could hear the protection magic sizzle its flesh, but the beast was in such a state of rage, it didn't seem to notice. I spoke a word I learned a long time ago, a word of power. I was told not to use it lightly. To use words of power like this drains some of your life. But I didn't see much more life in me if I didn't use what I had. For the safety of anyone reading this file, I won't include the word here. Trust me, it's for your own good. I spoke the word, and the magical force created within rushed through my hand and lifted the hellhound into the air, throwing him into the island in the middle of the room. It bought me enough time to get to my feet and see Marlene pull shut the sliding door to the den. Good. Keep some distance while I figure this out. The beast growled behind me, and I turned to face it, tapping the shillelagh in my left palm as I made eye contact with it. The old blood was pumping now. "Come on, Susie, let's dance," I said bravely to an animal that couldn't possibly understand my words. It launched at the wall, its great muscles flexed as it pushed off the sheetrock and passed overhead. I gave a wild swing, but missed it completely as it crashed into the den door, breaking through and passing into the darkened room beyond. I heard a scream and raced into the den behind it. Inside it was dark. I could hear the beast snarling from the right, but my out-of-shape ass was blocking most of the light from the door. I patted the walls next to the door until I found a light switch and flicked it on. Marlene was backed into a corner by an old-looking record player. The beast was sizing her up for an attack. John laid on the floor. Bloody ribbons of flesh hung from his arms and torso. He wasn't moving. He must have gotten in the way of the beast's prey. I hoped I would fare better. I charged the beast with a primordial roar of my own, shillelagh overhead. I launched off the ottoman and saw myself in slow motion like they do in the movies when 2 warriors leap and meet in midair. I brought the hardened blackthorn down on the beast's snout, using the word again as I placed my other hand on its skull. The combination of the protection spells in the shillelagh and the magic force pushed the beast's head down to the luxurious carpet. I hoped people that can afford that kind of carpet can afford to get bloodstains out of it. I brought the shillelagh down again and again on the head of the beast, each strike leaving marks on his body from the light energy of the protections from evil. I tried not to give it time to recover and hoped I could just beat it to death or submission. After the 5th blow, I told Marlene to get out of the corner, and she ran towards the kitchen. That proved to be a bad move, as the beast's eyes tracked its prey. It pushed past me and knocked her literally out of her shoes to the carpet below. I stepped over the motionless body of John, the sting of losing a client hitting me harder than the beast had so far. I couldn't lose another. I struck the beast on the back, but other than the sizzle and welt it left, the beast paid it no mind. Its own survival depended on the kill. I had to take it up a notch to get its attention away from Marlene. She screamed as it gripped her forearm with its jaws. I didn't have much time to make an impact on the beast. If I blasted it with magic, it just might rip her arm off as it gets flung against the wall. I needed a new strategy, something it wouldn't expect. And then the idea hit me. My mind dismissed it almost as fast as I thought it up. I heard a bone break in Marlene's arm, followed by another scream. There was no more time to debate. There are certain places, whether you are a beast, a man, a cryptid, demon, or angel, that are very sensitive to pain. One being the eyes. But I wasn't on that side of the beast. Oh no. I was on the other end. I looked down at my shillelagh with a tear in my eye. It was like saying goodbye to an old friend. Because if this worked, and I survived, I knew I wouldn't want it back. I spit on the end and gave it a shove where the beast was least expecting an attack. When there was resistance, I pushed harder and harder. Half the shillelagh disappeared before the beast even reacted. I don't know how to describe the noise it made. It didn't belong to beast or man. It was almost a surprised mewling with a hint of betrayal and a bit of, "How dare you?" Instantly it let go of Marlene, who scrambled on those beautiful legs back against the wall as I got the whole beast's attention. It began to turn on me, and I knew if it did, I was dead. I held up the end of the magical shillelagh suppository in my hand and uttered the word one more time, letting the magic flow through the wood and inside the digestive tract of the unholy beast. As the magic reached the tip, it reacted to the protection magic infused there, and the force was pushed away from the shillelagh in all directions. The wood was wrenched from my hand as the beast twisted and made eye contact just a second before the force was released. Starting with the intestines expanding, the beast began to bloat with the magical force pushing through its body. Its sides expanded out until it was shaped more like a hell hippo than a hellhound. I saw the anguish in its face a moment before the hell piñata burst, raining hellhound flesh down on a shocked Marlene. It hit me too, but I wasn't as shocked. This was the outcome I had hoped for. I looked down at the blood and unmentionable material covering my shillelagh and sighed. Well, I guess if I wanted to go out in a blaze of glory, there wasn't too many ways more rewarding than an exploding holy suppository in a hellbeast. It should be proud for its contribution. I popped down on my knees and took a few breaths. I was still in fight-or-flight mode and had to let myself calm down. Marlene sat on the floor, crying, holding her arms. She didn't look that bad off once you cleaned the hellhound's insides off of her. I tried to get to my feet and placed my hand on something. It was Marlene's shoe. I rose and walked to her. She was getting up as well. I handed her the shoe. "Thanks, they are really expensive," she said, pushing her hair from her face. "Funny. I thought you had green eyes," I said, looking at her face. She looked back at me with eyes the darkest brown, almost like black pools. "You must have been mistaken," she said. I looked down at my hand and saw red dust on my fingers. "How did that get there?" I checked on John, but like I feared, he was dead. There was nothing I could do for him. I called an ambulance and tried to figure out how I was going to explain what happened. Marlene sat quietly in the kitchen while I did so. I grabbed all my mystical objects and threw them in my car before the authorities arrived. They tend to ask a lot of questions from the kook on the scene, and I just didn't want to put Marlene through a media frenzy and shit show. She had just lost her husband, for Christ's sake. I made it down the driveway just as the sirens reached my ears. I drove the other way. I had left her with what to say. Tell them it was an animal attack. Tell them a bear came in the house and killed your husband. Tell them the chunks are from blasting it with the shotgun while distressed about John. They owned a shotgun. Seemed feasible. If she gave them no reason to doubt her story, then she should be fine. A few days later, I came to the wake. I was surprised to see Tara there. She stood outside the church as people came and went to pay their respects to John. I hesitated to go in and walked up to the woman. "Have you been inside?" I asked. "Not yet," she replied, watching a couple exit the funeral home. "You know them?" I asked. "Nope, but I'm guessing they were some of John's investors. They drove up in that BMW," she replied, pointing down the street. "In fact, I haven't recognized a single person coming or going since I got here. I don't think he had any friends in town." "He didn't," came Marlene's voice. She had come out the side door to sneak a cigarette. She wore a skin-tight black dress, barely containing all the lovely curves. Her brown hair spilled over her bare shoulders under a black hat. She was wearing the same black shoes she had been wearing that night. "How are you, Marlene?" I asked. "Did the cops give you any trouble?" "At first, but I'll manage," she replied. "I saw a construction crew headed up your way," Tara said to the widow. "Going to finish your husband's work?" "No, I couldn't stand the sight of that house after what happened. I'm having it torn down. Besides, with the news of my husband's gruesome death, the investors are all pulling out. There won't be a development at Heaven Hills after all," Marlene explained. "I'm sure it's for the best," Tara said, and turned away. She began to walk down the street back towards her shop. "I'm sorry about John," I said to her. "Thank you. It means a lot. I was hoping you would be here," she said, and handed me an envelope. Inside was a ton of bills. I rifled through it quickly, all hundreds. "I never gave you my fee," I said. "I did my research before hiring you, Mr. Becker," she explained. "You will see there is 3 times your normal fee, in cash." "Why the tip? Your husband died," I asked, nodding at the church. "For the next part," she said. A chill ran down my spine. "Hush money?" I asked. "How did you figure it out?" "Well, most novice summoners get in over their heads. I wasn't sure until it attacked us, but I know you are the Hellhowler. You summoned it to kill your husband, and you lost control of it and feared for your own life. I'm guessing you had no desire to live here in our podunk town and be away from high society? A girl has grown accustomed to such things, even if her husband yearned for a simpler life, she explained. And instead of taking half his money in a divorce, you could summon a demon dog and have it all. Did Tara know what was happening? No. She gave me a name of someone I could talk to about summoning magic, and that man gave me your name, she said. I still wasn't sure it was you until I heard the howl while you were powdering your nose, but I didn't want to believe it. But when I found the red brick dust on your shoe, so you could let your pet demon in, I knew. And your eyes. They were green when we met, my favorite color. What are you going to do now, Mr. Becker? Tell the police that I summoned a demon to kill my husband, or take my money? I've learned from my mistakes, but not in a repentance way. I would do it a bit more carefully if I had to do it again. Don't worry, my lips are sealed. It's a shame about old John. He seemed all right to me towards the end. I doubt our paths will cross again. Just know if they do, I won't be able to look away again, I said. I felt like an asshole letting her go, but there was no way the police would believe my story anyway. I get enough strange looks around town. I had to trust that karma, in one form or another, was coming for her, and let it do its work. I've seen worse people get away with more. She only murdered once, as far as I know. Oh, I got you something too, I said, and handed her the charm I had made for her. It's a little late now, though. She took it in her hand and looked it over before looking at me with the same green eyes. I remembered. Good day, Mr. Becker, Marlene said, finishing her cigarette. She turned back towards the funeral home. Call me James, I replied. She didn't hear me. The air grew warmer, the sun a little brighter after she left. I decided it was time for a pastrami sandwich, hard roll, mustard. The Monster's Not Real by Charles Campbell. The teeth flashed white just before the canines sank deep into the flesh, releasing a spray of red from the jugular. There was little resistance as meat was ripped from the bone. The beautiful creature was too tired to fight. It was certainly violent, but somehow peaceful at the same time. The lifeblood flowed from the gazelle as the cheetah opened the gash wider for her cubs. The reluctant cubs stuck their snouts inside of the freshly opened gut. The mother circled the kill, guarding against any intruding carrion or hyenas, or ready to grab her cubs and haul ass at the sign of an approaching lioness pride, as she watched them take small bites of flesh from the still-breathing gazelle. There was one final twitch of the back legs as life mercifully escaped the majestic animal. The cubs peered over the belly of the fallen beast with bright red circles around their grinning mouths. Their mother guarded them until they had their fill and took her turn at the buffet. Gwen stopped recording and gave a thumbs up to Sarah. This was the first month of tracking this adult female and her two cubs. Gwen Faulkner and Sarah Mathis were in South Africa to study big cats and became attached to this family in their first week of filming. Clementine was the name they gave the mother cat. Itchy and Scratchy were the cubs. Sarah was a big fan of The Simpsons. The names were appropriate because those cubs scratched and clawed at each other constantly, as if they could never quite quell an itch. Time to go. Gwen said as she placed the Canon Vixia digital recorder in a sturdy pea-green canvas knapsack. "What time is it?" Sarah asked as she placed a hand flat over the front of her eyes to shield the sun. "It's about 3 o'clock, Gwen started. "Let's leave them to their meal. I need to clean up. I'm sweating bullets over here. Why don't you ever wear those sunglasses I bought you in Atlanta? I think I might miss something out here if I put them on. And you wouldn't be able to stare into my blue eyes," Sarah responded as she removed the white ponytail holder from her long black hair, winding it around and around tightly before resetting the holder in place, tripling it up to make it super tight, on the verge of painful. "And why do you insist on having that long-ass hair out here in the jungle?" Gwen grinned at her companion as she ran her fingers through her own short, cropped brown mop. "Well, this is more flatland than jungle, and I feel like an African queen with my hair flowing behind me as I run through the wild terrain," Sarah said as she placed the Cardinals' baseball cap back on top of her head and guided the ponytail out the hole in the back. "Oh, really? Just wait till one of them fucking cats gets their paws on those locks, my dear. You'll wish you would clip that shit down when he's eating your face off." Gwen was smiling when she said it, but she wasn't joking. She was so serious, in fact, that she contemplated pulling out the scissors while Sarah slept to make one clip at the base of the ponytail holder. "Ooh, I really wish you would try that, Gwendolyn," Sarah said as she leaned in close, the brim of her Cardinals cap sliding up the front of her forehead, and planted a wet kiss on Gwen's chapped lips. Gwen pushed her back lightly with the palms of both hands. "Let's get back to camp, you cheeky monkey." "Oh, behave," Sarah laughed as she started up the old Jeep Wrangler and put it in first. "Hold on, Gwen. It's gonna be a bumpy ride." Camp was a few miles back to the east of where the women set up to watch Clementine and her babies. It was a wooden shack that was equipped with electricity via a gasoline-powered generator. Inside the shack, there was a hot plate and a couple of outlets that they could use to power their computers, as well as charge their phones and other equipment. On the outskirts of the flatland, just on the edge of civilization, they filled up the Jeep with petrol and did the same with 7 10-gallon gas cans they had brought along for the adventure. The wooden shack had been sheltered to a few documentarians before them, and the first thing Gwen saw when she opened the door for the very first time was a stuffed hyena with a wild grin sitting atop a note. The note said, "Mufasa, enjoy the show," to which Sarah said, "Say it again," and Gwen played along. "Mufasa." A portable shower station was located directly behind the shack, and an old-fashioned moon door outhouse was about 30 yards west of the shower station. The women had to procure and boil their own drinking water. Sarah had brought a couple of cases of Aquafina with them, but they disappeared quickly in the African heat. There was only so much they could stuff into that old brown Jeep. They did have chicken, beef, and shrimp ramen out the yin-yang. Anything else they ate, they killed and cooked. Survival of the fittest. Gwen was the first one out of the no-doors Jeep when it came to a bumpy stop a few feet from the shack's front door. "Dibs on first shower." "The hell you say?" Sarah yelled back as Gwen turned the corner around the back of the shack. "Sarah, get back here! Hurry the fuck up!" Sarah rounded the corner of the wood shack and grabbed the edge of the weathered corner, catching a nasty splinter in the palm of her hand in the process. She barely noticed as her orange Reeboks skidded to a sudden stop. "What the hell is that?" Sarah's mouth was agape, and trickles of sweat dripped from both sides of her face, rolling down her sun-reddened cheeks. Gwen was kneeling down on both knees when she looked up. "I have no fucking idea what this is." Sarah knelt beside her companion to inspect the dark red syrupy puddle that filled a hole that was about 3 feet deep and the same across. It was located directly in front of the entrance to the portable shower. The women stood together and started following a trail of the dark syrup that led away from the hole towards the tall grass. Gwen, oh my God, this smells horrible. It smells like vomit and shit got married and had a baby. Gwen scratched the top of her head as they walked and said, "There were no dig marks, at least none that I could recognize, and there's no trail here besides this line of stinky shit." "You sure about that, Gwendolyn?" Sarah didn't take another step and pointed at a line on two sides of the grass with both hands. She looked for a moment like she was directing traffic. It took a few seconds, but Gwen registered what her lover girl was pointing at. Every 4 or 5 feet, the grass looked as if it were smashed to the left and right in an even, symmetrical pattern, pushed to the side and flattened like a Mrs. Butterworth flapjack. "Sarah, what kind of animal does that?" Gwen pulled on the front of her sweat-soaked camouflage tee and rubbed at her forehead with the back of her hand. "Nothing I've seen or want to see. The trail's fading anyway. Let's get back. We left the rifle in the Jeep." They both turned to walk back to camp when a low growl emerged from the high grass. "Is that?" Gwen started. "Yes, it is. Do not run. You run, you're dead," Sarah said calmly. She was thinking about that long hair of hers now and what Gwen told her when they were spying on Clementine and company. Sarah took careful step after careful step and just stared at her feet as she walked, just waiting for the cat to erupt from the tall grass and tear her to shreds. She had walked a few feet, and the sounds of the male lion weren't getting any closer. The sound was actually emanating from further away. Sarah did an about-face and saw Gwen waving her over. She was wise not to scream, as to not draw unnecessary attention. "What is it?" Sarah yelled back to the waving Gwen. Gwen put her left index finger to her lips, as if to say, "Why the fuck do you think I'm not yelling, dumbass?" Gwen kept waving her over with her right hand. "That's far enough," Gwen whispered when Sarah was a couple of yards behind her. "Go around that way." Gwen pointed directly out in front of herself and motioned her hand in a semicircle. Sarah followed her direction and came around the other side. "Now, look there." Gwen pointed straight down. Sarah had 2 words. "Oh, fuck." "Oh, fuck's right," Gwen returned. The old male lion lay in a flattened patch of grass with an equally flattened patch of grass a few feet out, directly to the right of the fallen cat. His golden brown mane was matted against the back of his head and neck. Both of his back legs were crushed beyond recognition, with meat hanging from a flattened mound of bone and fur. The ground directly in front of the cat was dug all to hell from where he tried to pull himself through the grass with his 2 serviceable limbs. "Go get the rifle. I'll stay here and wait for you," Gwen whispered. "Fuck that. Let's both go get the rifle. Something did that to Buddy Boy here, and I'd feel much better with that Remington Woodmaster than you standing here with a pig sticker." "Okay, I just didn't want to leave him like this. You know? Look at him." The labored growl continued, and circling shadows started to appear on the ground in front of them. The women started back to the Jeep, and the carrion began their attack pattern. "Hurry up!" Sarah yelled as Gwen fell further behind. She had already grabbed the Woodmaster and started her jog back when Gwen caught up to her. "Look up there!" Gwen pointed to the vulture-filled sky, and they both heard the lion roaring in defiance. Sarah bolted, rifle in hand, and this time Gwen kept pace. The nasty, bald-headed death chaser found its own demise in Sarah's rifle shot. The bird was digging into the lion's crushed lower legs, with flesh hanging from its beak as the lion howled and pawed, trying to swipe at its tormentor, when Sarah caved in the side of its head with a clean shot right through the eye. This sent the others scattering a few yards back, but it wasn't enough to make them all take flight. Gwen ran out in front of the lion, making noise and screaming for the irreverent carrion to go away. King of the jungle. Not from where they were sitting. No fucking way. Just some more dead meat for them to devour. The exhausted lion looked at Sarah, with his light tan pools. They were filled with excruciating pain. She made eye contact, and they disconnected. Sarah nodded her head in the affirmative and said, "It's over now, buddy boy. The pain is done." 9:00 p.m. "Did you remember to cover the Jeep?" Gwen asked as the sound of heavy rain pelted the roof of the shack. "Yeah, I got the green tarp over it about an hour ago," Sarah replied. She was lying flat on her back in her service cot, wearing a pair of men's small gray boxers and a black t-shirt with the words Kung Fu displayed across the front in bright red letters, twirling her long black hair in her right hand. "I know you're still thinking about it." Gwen stood over the hot plate, stirring a newly made bowl of shrimp ramen. Shrimp that reminded Gwen of the sea monkey family she had seen in novelty stores as a kid. What could do that to that big-ass lion? And where is it now? What was that red shit in the hole out back? Sarah shook her head from side to side as she asked these two questions aloud. "You think he pissed off the wrong elephant and got his ass literally stomped?" Gwen asked, and then puckered her lips to cool her freshly boiled soup. "I don't know. I guess that could be it. But the way his hind end was smashed, it looked like something heavy and solid just dropped on him. And we certainly didn't see any elephant tracks coming back from our red trail or whatever the hell that was. You want some?" Gwen asked as she held the bowl of ramen out in Sarah's direction. "No, I don't want any soup right now. I'm not hungry." Gwen sat Indian style with legs crisscrossed in the middle of her cot, wearing fluffy pink bedroom slippers and an oversized nightshirt with Gumby's face on the front. "Well, Sarah, what do you want to do? You want to put it on hiatus and call in some big guns tomorrow?" "I don't think so. We didn't see it, so we don't know what it was. And I didn't hear anything outside of the lion howling and those damn birds yapping. I think we need to hold off until we kind of know what we might be dealing with. We don't need folks thinking us two girls get spooked so easily. You agree?" "Yep. I just wanted to hear you say it." Gwen bounced up off her cot and set the aluminum bowl on the makeshift counter. "Now, do you want some dessert?" Gwen smiled at Sarah as she lifted the nightshirt up over her head. "Now, I will have some of that," Sarah replied, kicking her boxers to the floor. 8:20 a.m. Sarah and Gwen huddled under the blind they set up in front of the Jeep and watched. A herd of gazelle just breezed through and a couple of hungry hyenas followed behind until they were all out of the blind's line of sight. "Getting worried," Gwen said, and then stepped out of the shield of the camouflaged blind. "We usually see them by now." "I know. I'm worried too. But we have to let them come to us. We can't go traipsing through the tall grass looking for them. Let's just wait here for a little while. If we don't see them by, let's say 9, then we'll move the Jeep in the direction the herd went. 'Kay?" "'Kay." Gwen remained outside of the blind and paced to the front of the Jeep, then back over and over again with her eyes trained on her surroundings. She was one with the Force. Her Ray-Bans kept the early glare out of her vision, and Sarah even brought the Ray-Ban fakes that Gwen picked up in the Atlanta airport at the start of their journey to Africa, the cradle of civilization. 9:02 a.m. The women were breaking down the blind when Gwen stood up and put her finger to her lips and gave a "Shh. Be quiet, Sarah. Shush it, Sarah. Just listen. It was quiet, but Sarah could hear the faintest noise that sounded like Scratchy. His little whine was distinctly higher in pitch than his sister Itchy, and even though it was barely within earshot, both women recognized it as belonging to the male cub. "It's coming from that direction." Sarah pointed to her left toward the watering hole. 2 days after they arrived, the women captured video of hyenas, gazelles, cheetah, and more than a few lions all together in what they thought were precarious harmony, drinking at the watering hole. Gwen remembered it brought to mind the sheepdog and the coyote clocking out for lunch in the old Bugs Bunny cartoons, calling a ceasefire while they enjoyed their break. This was the same kind of thing, and it was the damnedest thing either one of them had ever seen until they saw a cast-out alpha male lion with a crushed hind end a stone's throw away from their camp. Yep, that trumped the watering hole, and the red syrup vomit-smelling shit trumped them both. They made their way through the tall grass until the watering hole was in sight. "There he is," Sarah whispered, as she pointed to the house cat-sized cub striding in wide circles, crying for his mother and sister. "Where's Clementine and Itchy?" "Dunno. I don't see them," Sarah said as she knelt lower with both of her knees popping. "I'm scared, Sarah. Scratchy's not going to make it without Clementine. Should we—" Gwen began. "Abso-fucking-lutely not, Gwendolyn. We're here to film and document. What happens just happens. That was the deal." "But look at him. That thing might have gotten his mother." "Just what thing are you talking about, Gwen? There is no thing. It was getting to me too, I get it, I do, but the monster we made up is not real. There are plenty of other real monsters out here that can kill either one of us, just like that." Sarah snapped her fingers. "I still think that we should—" Gwen started and shut up. There was the sound of something approaching them from the south at a high clip. It was the sound of paws tapping earth with uncanny speed. Oh shit, something's coming fucking fast. It's over there," Sarah whispered, and motioned toward the parting grass about 20 yards behind them. Scratchy continued to walk in circles and whine. The women had to fight off every instinct in their bodies to keep from standing up and yelling at the cub to vamoose, scram, get the fuck out. An orange-brown spotted blur flashed by the women, no more than 4 or 5 feet away at its closest, and cleared the tall grass. It was Clementine, running for all she was worth. Scratchy peered up at his mother, and without missing a beat or slowing down, she grabbed her baby around the neck and kept trucking to the other side, back into the tall grass. A cheetah's sprint is something to behold, and it's normally brief. Not this one. Clementine gained an Energizer Bunny boost from somewhere, because she never slowed down. Not for a second. Did you fucking see that? What the fuck was that? Gwen's hands were both trembling violently, and she had to plant both of her knees into the soil to keep them from knocking together. I hope she didn't break the cub's neck when she picked him up that way. I hope he's not dangling lifeless from her mouth right now. I've never seen anything like that. Not on Animal Planet, Mutual of Omaha, or any tape I've ever seen. The women stood in unison to walk back to the Jeep. They had taken a few steps when Gwen stopped suddenly and pointed. Sarah, there's another one. Fuck, I left the rifle in the Jeep. The dark red syrup sloshed ever so slightly. An orange and black beetle of some type was stuck in the middle of the thick liquid. It kicked violently with its front legs, which looked like it had mini baby bottle brushes affixed as feet. Sarah? I'm scared shitless. Gwen was spinning in a 360 as she spoke. Yeah, I don't feel so safe myself. The hole's about the same width, and if you look that way, Sarah pointed to her left with her eyes, intently trained on something just ahead, in the distance. You'll see where the grass isn't quite as tall and then disappears on each side. Same pattern, Gwen. It's been smashed into the ground, and the trail is here. This stinky goo heads that way. Let's go back to camp and use the satellite phone. I don't care if they think we're a couple of scared little girls that got spooked. Gwen reached for Sarah's hand to gain acknowledgement and understanding of the situation. Sarah understood and acknowledged, but she said, I'm not calling anybody until we see it. If we see it, I'll put a bullet in its head, and then we can take a picture of the carcass and post it on the website. Now, let's get back to the Jeep because my dumbass left the rifle. Sarah and Gwen whispered their argument all the way back to the Jeep. In the spot Sarah pointed out, about 10 yards away from the new goo puddle, was an orange and black splat. Itchy was in the center of the flattened out grass, and all that was left of her was her coat and crushed skull. The guts had splayed out and had been pushed into the ground. Itchy's death was quick, and poor Clementine witnessed it. She knew there was nothing she could do for that baby, and she beelined it to her remaining cub faster than any gazelle she had ever chased down. The clouds in the west started to bunch up, and darkness was coming to the flatland. At the Jeep. Storm's coming. You can smell it. Gwen looked to the quickly darkening sky. The clouds were pushing together from opposite directions, as if they were the Bloods and the Crips back in the day ready to rumble, pre-drive-by shooting days. I'd like to take this rifle and follow the trail. Maybe we can figure out what's causing those weird square puddles. You remember what I said about this monster not being real? Yeah, I remember, Gwen replied. Sarah removed her fake Ray-Bans and trained her eyes on Gwen. I didn't believe it when I saw it. I know. No sooner did Gwen get the words out than the heavy drops of rain came, and once they started, the faucet was turned wide open. The companions jumped into the Jeep, and Sarah peeled out back towards the camp. The rain was relentless, and Sarah was driving on instinct more than vision going in the general direction of camp. Gwen was pushed up against the dashboard, trying to help guide her friend. Sit back, Gwen. I got this, Sarah screamed. You can't see, Sarah. I can't see. Just stop the fucking Jeep. I know where we are. Stop the Jeep. We're almost back. Stop the motherfucking... In the matter of a couple of seconds, down was up and up was down. The front right tire of the Jeep dropped into a 3x3 hole of stinky vomit shit red syrup. The Jeep flipped, front first, sending Gwen flying out of the passenger side through the top and out in front of the Jeep. It was slow motion for her. Gwen felt like she could see each raindrop hit and slightly sting her face as she sailed into the darkness before landing with a sickening thud on her left side. She heard but didn't yet feel the crunch of two ribs giving in. Gwen blinked furiously, trying to get her eyes to adjust. It was like someone caught her off guard with a sudden camera flash. Sarah? Then Gwen rolled onto her back and was out. The Cardinal's cap was laying in the mud just in front of the Jeep's still blaring but upside down headlights. Sarah strapped in her seatbelt. Gwen had not. Sarah was still secured in her seat with the blood rushing to her head. She had sustained a nasty whack on the same dashboard that she had screamed at Gwen about nudging up too close. The engine was still running, and the wrong side up tires spun furiously because Sarah's foot was still pressed down hard on the gas pedal, like it was shocked into place. Ugh. Gwen? Sarah was coming around and lifted her foot from the gas pedal. Her head felt like it had taken a direct shot from Iron Mike and pulsed worse than any headache she had ever experienced. There was a trickle of blood dripping onto the ground from her scalp, up her forehead. The rain was still furious, and Sarah blinked feverishly as Gwen had done after her fall, but Sarah stayed awake. What the fuck? Ow! Ow! Gwen? You there? The cobwebs began to clear, and Sarah realized that she was upside down, still strapped into the Jeep. She remembered them getting into the Jeep after seeing puddle number 2, and didn't remember slamming into puddle number 3. Now her focus was on Gwen. She leaned forward with her left arm to brace herself and unlatched the seatbelt with her right hand. Gravity did the rest, and she rolled out onto the wet ground. Besides suffering a concussion, she had broken no bones, and outside of a growing goose egg on her forehead, she was fine, physically. "Gwen!" Sarah staggered through the sheets, pausing only to retrieve her prized hat from the mud to her fallen partner. "Gwen, stay with me. Don't you do this." Sarah grabbed her by the right wrist and quickly found a strong pulse. "Oh, thank God." A rumble of thunder filled the flatland, followed by a flash of blue lightning that cracked like a whip. The smell of ozone was thick. The lightning had splintered something in the earth about 50 yards from where Sarah was kneeling over Gwen. After the strike, Sarah stood up, pressed one palm to her left ear, and opened her mouth as wide as she could to loosen up her tightening jaw, another effect from the Jeep flip. "Oh, fucking ow! Sarah, it fucking hurts!" "I'm here, Gwen. I'm right here." "I told you to stop the fucking Jeep," Gwen said as she grimaced. "I know you did, but there's nothing we can do about that now. Can you stand?" Sarah reached down with both arms straight away. Gwen held out her right hand. Her left arm was pressed against her left side, with her hand firm on her abdomen. Sarah pulled Gwen's right arm with both of hers. "Oh, that hurts like a son of a bitch!" Gwen screamed as she made it to her feet, hunched to her left, favoring her broken ribs. "What hurts?" Sarah asked, not knowing the extent of Gwen's injuries. "My left side. I heard a couple of them give before I blacked out." "Anything else?" asked Sarah. "No, your head has a huge fucking knot on it. You look like a unicorn." Gwen started to chuckle, and the additional pain from the effort nixed that real quick. "Ah, I want to get out of here." "Me too," Sarah replied, and continued. "I don't know what we hit." "Another hole made by our fake monster," Gwen replied. She stepped toward the overturned Jeep, looking a lot like a pretty Quasimodo, all hunched over. The rain was down to a drizzle, but the sky remained dark, threatening to drop another bucket whenever it felt the need. "Right there. See? You can still see some of that red shit." "Yeah, I see it. Let's get back to camp and call for help like I should have done yesterday." "Like we should have done yesterday," Gwen corrected. Sarah put her arm around Gwen with Gwen's right arm draped around her neck. They began a slow trek back to where Sarah believed their shack was, which was a couple of miles east. The just-out-of-sight watering hole was the point of reference, and she was 90% confident in her direction, even with a concussion and a nice-sized bump on her forehead. They were about a half a mile into their return when they encountered it for the first time. There was a flicker of neon green in the sky against the darkness of the mid-morning clouds. 2 sets of flashes that seemed to form a dazzling square pattern set apart by a few yards. In between the 2 pulsating lights, there was a dark outline of something solid, something unforgiving, something deadly. Gwen seemed to forget about her cracked ribs as she was trying to reconcile in her brain what her eyes were witnessing. Sarah was right there with her. There was the lightest hum coming from the pulsing lights, and something that sounded a little like the pull and start from a crank mower coming from the solid structure in the center. Gwen was the first to break their stunned silence. "Sarah? What the fuck is that?" The hum became louder as the floating structure started to close in on the women. "Let's go." Sarah squeezed Gwen's hand. and pulled her behind as her orange Nikes found their get up and go. Pain was replaced by adrenaline, and Gwen followed just behind in a full stride. Confident in her partner's gait, Sarah released her hand. The hum was getting closer, and it sounded like the mower was about to run them down. All of a sudden, the earth underneath them rattled, and Gwen tripped, letting out a yelp as the impact of the ground sucked out the adrenaline and put the pain back in its proper place. "Get up, Gwen! Get up or you're going to fucking die!" Sarah screamed as she sprinted back towards her. Gwen clawed into the wet grass and gained purchase with her safari boots as she bolted up. However, all of the pain was there, front and center, stopping her cold. "It hurts so fucking bad, Sarah. Just go get the phone. I can't run. I can't." The lawnmower sound was closing in rapidly, and it was magnified times 10. Sarah placed both hands against her ears. The noise was maddening, but nothing was coming to get them. The solid cube structure that had the sheen of smooth black marble had planted itself into the earth just behind Gwen. She could feel the vibration through the backs of her knees and upper thighs. The mower sound was in full throat, and Sarah pulled Gwen away. It let them get back to the shack. There was the turn of a knob, and then the shack door exploded open with a well-placed toe kick by a size 7 Nike. "Okay, Gwen, let's get you down." Sarah led her to the cot with her left arm around Gwen's waist, while her right hand held Gwen's around the back of her neck. Tears were streaming down Gwen's face, but she remained surprisingly composed. "Just ease me down. Easy. Oh, it fucking hurts," Gwen mumbled as Sarah gently rolled her down on top of the cot. "Sarah?" "Yes, Gwen?" "Go get the fucking phone." Sarah removed the black phone from the charging station and held the power button. The green backlight came to life, and Sarah dialed the emergency number 10111 and pressed the call button. Click, click, then static. Sarah pressed the end button and started again. Click, click, static. With the static, Sarah thought about a quote from an old horror movie she had seen as a kid. "They're here." "That they are," she said, as she set the phone back into the charging station. "They're what, Sarah?" Gwen asked, trying not to breathe too deeply. "Good news is the phone is working. The bad news is there's no signal. Maybe it's the storm." "No, Sarah, no, the phone has to work." Gwen started sobbing. "The fucking phone has to work." The rain was back, just as heavy as before. "I need to get that shirt off and clean you up." Sarah opened the door to the shack and retrieved a 5-gallon bucket from just outside, used to collect rainwater. "Come on now, let me help you." Gwen lay flat on her back and raised her arm above her head. Her left arm wouldn't cooperate. Sarah pulled up the right side of the camo tee first, and Gwen pulled her right arm through and out. Sarah carefully moved the shirt down her left side and pulled it free from her left arm that Gwen still had pretty much pressed against her side. "Oh, Gwen," Sarah said as she was taken aback by the approximately 5-inch by 3-inch dark blue bruise on Gwen's left side. Sarah dipped the white washcloth deep into the black bucket. At first glance, it looked as though she was dipping it into a pool of crude oil. Sarah pulled the washcloth out quickly because of the mind trick and found clear water running down her forearm from the soaked cloth. She began to gently cleanse Gwen, starting with her injured side. Gwen winced a little and said, "What if it comes here again? What if it smashes the fucking roof in, Sarah? What are we going to do?" "We're just going to stay in here until the storm clears, and I'm going to try the phone again. Then, we're going to get the fuck out of here." "What was it, Sarah? I've never seen anything like it in my life." "Me neither. I don't know what it was, and I hope we don't have to find out." Unfortunately for both of them, they would find out before the dawn of the next day. 11:45 p.m. Sarah lay with her eyes closed, but her mind was on the highest alert. Code fucking red. There would be no sleep that night. Gwen moaned in the darkness with each breath she took. Sarah had cleaned and bandaged Gwen's wounded left side. The generator had run out of fuel an hour earlier, and the storm outside kept Sarah in her cot, listening to Gwen struggle with the pain of sucking in air. She had tried the phone more than 10 times since she first got the click, click, static. "They're here. Remember that, Sarah?" she thought to herself. Midnight. The thunder continued to growl like another big, hungry African cat. The noises of popping and clicking from something not so far away followed. The strike that came after shook the shack to its foundation, sending a few dishes collapsing from the counter. It was strong enough to knock the satellite phone from its cradle. It crashed down on the wood floor, and the green backlit display suffered a crack right down the center. Gwen grimaced as she sat up in the darkness. "Sarah? That was close," Gwen started. "What time is it?" "Not quite sure. I think it's a little past midnight. You okay, sweetie?" Sarah asked. "Not really. I just want to pack up our shit and get the fuck out of here. My side is killing me. I can't breathe right." "As soon as the storm passes, we'll get somebody on the phone and get out of here," Sarah replied as she switched on the Coleman lamp. "Sarah?" "Yes?" "Did you get the camera?" "No, it's still in the Jeep. If it's still in one piece, that is." "Rifle?" Gwen asked. "Jeep," replied Sarah. "Can we go get them when the rain stops?" "I'll go get it, Gwen. You'll stay right here until we get some help." "Sarah?" "Yes?" "I love you." "I love you too. Now, try to rest." 1:22 a.m. "Gwen, wake up! That's outside the door!" Sarah bolted off the cot and knelt down in front of the old shack door. "Sarah, we know that sound." The women could hear the unmistakable whine of Scratchy, followed by the sound of sharpened claws scraping against the door. The thunder still rumbled and the rain still pounded, but something inside of Sarah made her open the door. Scratchy slowly limped through the door with his body trembling terribly. He continued to talk in his kitty language as he stepped gingerly. His orange and black coat was covered with red, sticky, syrupy shit, and his back left paw was smashed flat. Just a flap of crushed bone and fur remained. He collapsed in the center of the floor and turned his head up towards Sarah. "I think Clementine's dead. I think she died protecting her baby," Sarah said as tears flowed down the sides of her face while she gazed upon the wounded cub. He looked back at her with frightened eyes that asked, "Where's my mommy?" "We gotta get out of here, and we have to leave right now." The humming noise was back, along with what sounded like a Briggs & Stratton lawnmower falling rapidly from the sky. Sarah backed up against the front door, and the adrenaline kicked back into Gwen as she stepped into her pull-up shorts and moved close to Sarah. Scratchy looked at them both, and he looked too human in that moment. They could both read the pain and fear in his face. Gwen had to put her right hand on the floor, and Sarah steadied herself, as if she caught a massive wave while surfing when the shack wobbled back and forth violently. The sound of the mower was right on top of them. Sarah and the adrenaline-infused Gwen scrambled to their feet. As Sarah turned the knob on the door, the solid black structure caved in and splintered the roof. Scratchy didn't even see it coming. His gaze was still fixed on Sarah and Gwen when the solid black marble-esque cube crushed his entire body, pushing him through the wood floor, back into the earth below. The women ran back into the rain and the darkness. Sarah held the Coleman lantern in her right hand and Gwen's hand in the other. "Ugh!" Sarah screamed in agony as something jerked her from Gwen's grip, tossing her to the ground with devastating force by the back of her long hair, sending her sprawling flat on her back into the wet grass and dirt. It was dragging Sarah over the terrain as she clutched and clawed at the moving ground, trying in vain to stop. "Let her go! What the fuck are you?" Gwen was temporarily frozen in place as her mind tried to tell her, "The monster's not real. Nope, you're not seeing it right there in front of you, pulling your lover girl's hair from its roots. It's not really happening because the monster's not real." "Gwen, run! Just go!" Sarah yelled into the night as she was being pulled toward the smooth black center cube. Gwen couldn't move except for the trembling of both hands and the knocking of her knees. The broken ribs weren't even an afterthought. She could have taken a direct shot to them with a baseball bat, and, in this moment, she wouldn't have felt a thing. Sticking out symmetrically from the right and left side of the smooth black cube was an equally smooth black cable. Attached to each end of the cable was a flat metallic panel that was approximately 3 by 3, and they were stuck firmly into the earth, flattening out anything underneath. There were flashing green lights that lined the outer edges of both sides of these panels. The coiled mechanical claws wrapped around the base of Sarah's ponytail and gave another vicious tug. Gwen watched in horror as she heard the sounds of skin and hair being forcibly ripped from underneath the cardinal's cap. The ponytail attached to a jagged and bloody piece of Sarah's scalp pulled through the back hole of the hat. "Ah!" Sarah unleashed a scream that wasn't human. It wasn't the scream of a late-night B horror flick or the scream of a woman being assaulted. Sarah's scream was unlike any other that Gwen could ever recall, even in her darkest dreams. For just a moment, it looked as if Sarah might get away, and Gwen found her voice again. "Here! Hurry! Hurry, Sarah! Please, baby!" Gwen stretched out her hand to her partner. She held it out like she was awaiting a baton, and she was the last relay runner. Gwen, thank God!" Sarah's fingers barely grazed Gwen's fingertips when she was suddenly yanked back into the darkness. "No!" Gwen scrambled toward Sarah when a solid but flexible black coil lashed out and hit her across her midsection, sending her airborne. She landed in a heap very hard on her injured side, and there was another gut-wrenching crack. The wind left her body immediately, and she blinked her eyes rapidly, as she had when the Jeep overturned. This time, she saw a pair of large, oval neon green eyes blinking back at her from a distance. As she was losing her grip on consciousness, she saw the dark, hulking figure toss Sarah into an opening on the back side of the black cube. The last thing she heard before the lights went out was Sarah screaming for just an instant, and the sound of a lawnmower engine. No, it was more like the sound of an oversized blender, chopping into flesh and bone. It was sure to leave behind a concoction of red syrupy shit in a 3 by 3 puddle. Gwen was out, and Sarah was dead. 1 month later. "Jason, it's over here!" "Roger that, Brian." Jason was approximately 10 yards behind Gwen's brother. "Gwen's gonna get it when I get my hands on her," Brian continued as he parted the tall grass with both hands, sort of like performing a breaststroke in a swimming pool. "I see it now," Jason said as he jogged ahead. The wood shack was there, all in one piece, nary a scratch. "Gwen! Sarah!" Jason shouted toward the front door. Jason gave 2 quick knocks before he turned the knob. He stepped in with Brian just behind. Sitting right atop the makeshift counter was a stuffed hyena with a wild grin. Tucked neatly in between its front paws was a note. The note said, Mufasa! Enjoy the show, Brian. Sarah and I packed up on September 8th. There's gas in the generator out back. The phone's broken. That's why no call. Love you, Gwen. P.S. I left something for you about 30 yards in front of the door in the tall grass, to the left. That fucking Gwen, Brian grinned as he passed the note to Jason. Jason returned the smile and said, Let's go see what she left for us. Jason led the way as they walked outside. It was mid-morning and the dark clouds were quickly tumbling together. Okay, we're about 30 yards out. Look around. Brian ran his hand through his short cropped brown hair, just like his sister had done, not all that long ago. Hey, over there! Jason pointed his left hand toward the top of the grass line. You see it? See what? Over there. Jason shook his finger to his left with more urgency. The grass goes flat over there. Got it. Brian followed his buddy through the grass. What the fuck? Brian stopped cold. Brian, you gotta see this over here. Jason yelled from a few yards to the right of where Brian was transfixed. No, Jason, you need to get the fuck over here first, right now. Brian, there's some red stinky shit over here in a square hole. Fuck that! Get the fuck over here! Brian screamed in panic. The clouds converged and the first heavy drops began to fall. There was a blood-stained cardinal's cap, turned upside down on the ground. A long black trail of hair, still held together by a white ponytail holder, lay beside the hat. The faucet was then turned completely on. Brian grabbed the hat and hair and the men ran back towards the shack. Jason, who is that? Brian yelled into the rain as the door of the shack came into view. Is that Gwen? Gwen, is that you? Jason yelled behind. The figure moved backwards into the shack. Brian was the first to come bursting through the door. Gwen? Oh my God, Gwen! What happened here? Gwen was lying naked as the day she was born, flat on the cot, staring up at the shack ceiling, mumbling quietly to herself. What's wrong with her? Jason asked. No sooner did Jason speak than Gwen sat straight up in the cot, chanting, The monster's not real. The monster's not real. The monster's not real. The sound of thunder boomed, and there was a hissing and popping in the distance. What the hell? Brian started. Is that a fucking lawnmower? I told you they'd come, said Gwen. Who'd come? Brian asked, while Jason tried to make sense of it all. I wasn't talking to you. Gwen's lips parted in a wide grin when the shack began to rattle violently. The trap was sprung. They were the beetles trying to swim in red, syrupy shit. Gwen's last thought was a monster's lie. I can't wait to see Sarah again. The boys never knew what hit them. The Beast of Roca de Vaca by Morgan Moore. All right, kids, everybody going to Ranch Roca de Vaca, be on the bus in 5 minutes, the teacher shouted through a megaphone to a parking lot full of kids and their parents. This year, the decision for a class trip included a weekend at a ranch to learn more about agriculture and the kind of self-operated business that were most common in the surrounding area. While there were a number of ranches within the same area, Ranch Roca de Vaca stood out for being run by immigrants from Puerto Rico. To both the parents and the teachers, this meant the kids could learn not only about agriculture, but also about another culture as well. In the hustle and bustle of all the kids and adults getting everything ready, Patrick Adams stood with a group of his friends. Patrick was excited to go on the trip, especially since it gave him a weekend away from his parents.
He loved his parents, but he was also 12 years old and was at that age when he needed time away from his folks to be on his own every so often. "Man, I can't wait to get out of this parking lot. No parents for a whole weekend," Sean, one of Patrick's friends, said with excitement. "Yeah, but we'll have Mr. Osborne and Mr. Riley as chaperones, plus all the people at the ranch," Tommy, another friend, mentioned. "Hey, I'll take it. At least they'll let us explore and have fun. Unlike our parents," Sean replied. Guys, Patrick started to say, a smile on his face. "It doesn't matter who is or isn't with us. All that matters is no classes and no parents for the next 4 days." His friends shrugged and nodded their heads in agreement. The three of them knew they'd do some schoolwork over the course of the trip, but the knowledge that it wouldn't completely be like school was something they were happy about. It was a kid's dream. "Last call! Everybody on the bus if you want to go to the ranch!" Another announcement came from the teacher, getting the attention of everybody in the lot. Parents gave their children final farewells as well as telling them to have fun and be safe. Patrick and his friends said their goodbyes to their parents and started to head towards the bus. The ride to the ranch took a couple of hours, and once there, the children were directed over to an area by a barn. In front of the barn stood an older man dressed in traditional ranching garb, with a dog sitting beside him. "Hello, everybody. My name is Michael, and this here is Picasso. Welcome to Ranch Roca de Vaca. We're excited to have you all here, and we hope that you will all have a fun time." The kids cheered loudly with excitement as the teachers clapped and cheered with them, though not as energetic. Michael smiled and bowed his head in thanks. "Thank you very much. Now, before we get all you kids settled into your rooms, we just want to set a few ground rules. First of all, you can see this is a big area with a lot of open land. We ask that while you stay with us, you not explore outside of the fenced areas at all. And that if you must venture out that way for any reason, make sure you have an adult with you. Being outside at night goes with that as well. Other than that, I hope that you all have a good time, and we'll see you later tonight for a campfire." Once night had fallen, everybody met back up at the location Michael told them to for the campfire. It was a fun time with hot dogs, s'mores, roasted corn, perfect for kids that had been cooped up all day with just snack food. Picasso went up to everybody and sniffed at them, trying to get some food before Michael called him back to his side. After everybody had eaten, Michael stood up from his seat and whistled, calling all the children to attention. "You guys enjoy dinner?" he asked, getting a thunderous applause in return. "Well, I'm glad to hear that. Would you all like a story? Assuming, y'all can handle it." The kids screamed at the man in front of them, demanding the story and promising that they wouldn't be scared. After a minute or two, the kids quieted down, ready for the story they were promised. "Many years ago, back in Puerto Rico, on a ranch not too different from this one, my grandpa started to lose some of his livestock. Goats, cows, pigs, just about everything he had started to disappear. And when the animals would be found, they were dead and drained of blood. A couple weeks later, my grandpa went out with some buddies one night who also happened to be ranchers. As the night went on, my grandfather asked if any of them had experienced anything similar to what was going on at his ranch. To his surprise, they all had been dealing with the same things. Well, at least one of his friends had an idea. He claimed that it was a monster. Now, as one might expect, everybody in the room laughed at that point. But he stuck to it, saying that this sort of thing happened years ago, but suddenly stopped. Because of its affinity for goats, he named the beast El Chupacabra, the goat sucker. Sure enough, the animals suddenly stopped disappearing. Now for me, I'm not too sure about it all, but you never know. After all, why do you think we don't want you guys going out alone at night?" Michael grinned as he finished his story, and an animal howled in the distance. The kids looked shaken a bit. The teachers, too. A moment later came another howl cutting through the night air, which caused the group to jump. Their host and storyteller laughed a little at the reaction the kids had from the multiple howls. "No need to worry about those howls, boys and girls. That's the dogs we keep on the ranch to keep the animals in line. No El Chupacabras here." Taking his words to heart, everybody got up and headed off to bed after taking care of the fire. The next day brought hours of learning how the farm was run, a huge lunch spread, and hours of horseback riding, after which everyone was excited for another campfire. But once they got close enough to the ranch, everyone could see that something wasn't quite right. A ranch hand ran over to Michael, distraught. "Boss, it's terrible, just terrible," the ranch hand blurted out, feverishly. "What is it?" Michael replied, his voice remaining calm. "There's a hole in the fence where the goats and the pigs sleep and the worker spurted out in a slight mumble. "Well, come on, what is it?" Michael said in a tone that was both commanding and now starting to be tinged with concern. "They're dead. All dead," he spat out. Michael found himself dumbstruck, and the kids were speechless, their faces twisting into horrific expressions. Without hesitating, Michael rode off towards the area the ranch hand had described, while the hand motioned the children towards the stable and instructed them to return to their rooms. Patrick was very concerned. After all, animals just dropping dead wasn't something that happened every day. He shared his concerns with Sean and Tommy, and while they did find it strange, it didn't seem to bother them or make them feel as weird as Patrick. Hopefully tomorrow would be a better day. Unfortunately for Patrick and the rest of the class, it was not a better day. All activities were canceled and the children were confined to the large dining area. Patrick managed to sneak away at one point and eavesdrop on his teachers, Michael, and some of the ranch staff standing just outside an open window. "What are we going to do?" Mr. Osborne asked. "Is there any way you and the children could leave early?" a female ranch hand asked. "No," Mr. Riley started. "Unfortunately, the bus won't be back until tomorrow morning. Unless you have something to transport all the kids and make the 100-mile round trip, we have to stay until 7 in the morning. "Well, that settles it then, doesn't it? Keep the children in their rooms for the remainder of the day. Only let them out for dinner. I'll have some of the workers stand guard by the doors. That way, if a child needs to go to the bathroom, they can have a chaperone. Tonight, me and some of the other workers will stay up to keep watch over the ranch." Michael spoke calmly, but seriously. The teachers nodded and Michael and his staff turned and left. "I cannot believe this is happening. I thought the school said everything about this place checked out perfectly fine," Mr. Osborne asked his colleague. "It did from what I saw. Besides, you can't control what goes on in nature," Mr. Riley replied with a sigh. "You're right, but still, you would think they'd have this more under control. Almost all the animals are dead. Drained of their blood. It's just weird," Mr. Osborne mused. "You've got that right," Mr. Riley said. The two then walked off, continuing to talk as they went. "No way," Tommy said after Patrick finished telling him and Sean what he'd overheard. "Yeah, Patrick, there's no way a monster is responsible for everything going on," Sean chimed in. "Come on, guys. It would be one thing if they dropped dead, but I heard them say there was no blood at all," Patrick retorted. "It could just be some wild animal that broke in," Sean offered as a potential explanation. "Okay, so it is a wild animal, but the fences are made up of barbed wire. If any animal broke in to kill the livestock, it would have been cut from the wire." "No blood, remember?" Patrick shot back. "All right, so it is that Chupacabra monster. Why does it matter to us? If we're just going to be stuck here all day, then we'll be safe," Tommy said. "Because wouldn't it be cool to say you saw a monster?" Patrick asked. "I mean, yeah, but nobody would believe us. You would have to have photographic proof." "Wait, no way, Patrick," Tommy said, figuring out his friend's plan. "Come on, Tommy, it's simple. We just hide after dinner so we don't get locked in here. We bring your camera with us and we go on a little monster hunt. Once we get our proof, we run off and sneak back into our room. There's nothing to worry about," Patrick explained to the two of them. "Pat, that sounds really dangerous. I mean, if there is a monster, what could it do to us? Plus, we'd get in loads of trouble if any of the ranchers caught us," Sean mused. "We're going back tomorrow. What possible trouble could we get in? I think you guys are just scared. You guys want to join me and have some fun before we go home, or do you want to just stay in here bored out of your minds?" Patrick asked. His friends looked at him and then at each other. After a few minutes of silence, the two spoke up together. "Okay, we're in." That night, the boys put their plan into action. The tricky part was figuring out how to stay under the radar so that they didn't get sent back to their room after dinner. Patrick, Tommy, and Sean decided to leave dinner early and head back to their rooms ahead of everybody else. Once they were outside, the three boys carefully made their way into one of the barns and hid by a pile of hay and began to wait. Through the cracks in the walls of the barn, they could see the light shining in from outside, and once the light faded completely into darkness, they emerged from their hiding spot. When they exited the barn, the calmness of the night sent a shiver down their collective spines. None of them were afraid of the dark, but being on the ranch at night, while a monstrous creature might be on the prowl, was something that put all three of them on edge. Patrick took the lead, brandishing a flashlight he swiped earlier from a storage closet in the building where the rooms were. He turned it on and looked at Tommy and Sean, who returned his gaze. The three boys nodded and then started to make their way around the ranch. They moved slowly and carefully, making sure they weren't spotted by any workers, but also making sure they didn't miss anything. "This is boring," Sean whispered. "Be quiet," Tommy whispered back. "Back at you," Sean responded. "Both of you, shut up," Patrick shot at the two of them. The trio continued to make their way around the ranch, not wanting to potentially have missed anything. After the second walkthrough, they agreed that there was clearly nothing going on and decided it was time to head back. When they reached the front of their building, they stopped for a bit. "Well, that was a whole lot of nothing," Sean stated, yawning afterwards. "I gotta admit, Pat, that was pretty pointless. Look, I know the way those animals died is weird, but we searched the whole ranch, twice. It isn't a monster," Tommy said. Patrick sighed and shrugged a little bit. "I guess you guys were right. Sorry I kept you both up. But hey, at least we didn't get into trouble. Let's go to bed." The three boys started to open the door, but they stopped when a horrible shriek filled the night. They looked at each other in shock. Without hesitating, they raced to where they thought the noise originated from. As they got closer, Patrick went to raise the flashlight, stopping in sudden terror when he saw what was in front of him. The suddenness of his stopping caused Sean and Tommy to crash into him. The trio tumbled to the ground, sending the flashlight rolling away. When they looked up towards where the light shone, all three of them started in terror. In front of them was a creature squatting over a dog, licking its lips. The beast looked like a mutated mixture of a wolf and a bat, a sharp spike-like spine poking out from its back, its eyes glowing deep crimson. This creature, this thing, matched Michael's description of El Chupacabra. Patrick, Sean, and Tommy stood up slowly, fear taking over their bodies. The monster roared and started towards the boys. They ran, taking off as fast as they could. El Chupacabra roaring again and gaining on them quicker than they expected. So quick, in fact, it passed them and stopped in front of them, standing up in its full height, drooling and growling like a dog interrupted from eating. All three boys stopped suddenly again, sweating bullets with every nerve in their body on full alert. The monster started to walk towards them slowly, eyeing up its new prey. They wanted to run. They needed to run, but the fear paralyzed them in place. Tommy, Sean, and Patrick could think of nothing, do nothing. They were simply stuck with the towering, unholy creature in front of them. Suddenly, Picasso came rushing from behind them and jumped on the beast. The dog bit into the neck of its enemy and shook its head, digging in as much as it could. It seemed to work as El Chupacabra cried out in pain. However, it didn't work for long as it ripped the dog away from its neck before taking a bite out of it. El Chupacabra threw the dog away like a piece of garbage. Picasso hit the wall of the building and fell to the ground, staying there, motionless. The beast turned its eyes back towards the boys. This time, though, they had enough of their wits about them to start running again. The monster chased after them. Everywhere they went, the monster followed, cutting them off time after time. Patrick, Sean, and Tommy somehow managed to always pivot at the last minute, the beast shrieking in anger each time. Barks soon began to fill the night as the sound of the beast stirred the security dogs, soon joined by voices echoing behind them in Spanish. "We need to get inside! Anywhere!" Tommy screamed feverishly at his friends. The boys darted into the first building they saw, a small barn filled with farming equipment. El Chupacabra stormed in after them, ripping the doors off their hinges. It roared at them and once more began to move towards them. Patrick and his friends backed away from it slowly, grabbing anything they could to throw at what was in front of them, though none of it had any effect on the monster. Soon they found themselves backed against a table, each boy feeling around for something to use as a weapon, though their efforts proved fruitless. With the creature almost right in their faces, they came to the conclusion that this was it. This was where everything was to end. A bang shot through the barn, and El Chupacabra swung its body around. Michael stood there, holding a shotgun aimed at the monster. It rushed at Michael and slammed him down to the ground, then kicked him away. Michael crashed into the metal wall of the building, leaving behind a dent. As the creature was about to go in for the final blow, Picasso slammed into the leg of the beast and started tearing at its leg. The dog let go and backed up as its opponent shrieked. Picasso rushed at the thing, and the two went tumbling to the ground, biting at each other ferociously. Sean and Tommy sprinted over towards Michael, screaming out for help. Patrick, however, ran after the two fighting animals. He found where they were, but was unable to see the combat clearly thanks to the frenzy. Growls, barks, shrieks, and cries filled the air in equal measure as dirt flew everywhere. Finally, they backed away from each other, wheezing and breathing heavily, staring each other down, before exploding into violence once more. Patrick cried out and ran back to where Michael and his friends were. Once there, he found Michael was on his feet, Sean and Tommy by his side. "The workers are calling the police and arming themselves. Come on, let's get to safety," Michael told the boys. "But what about Picasso? He's still fighting that thing," Patrick stammered out in a worried tone. Michael looked at him, gulping a bit. He had forgotten that his dog had saved him from certain doom. The man knew he had to get to safety, to get the boys to safety, but he couldn't just abandon his friend. Without any more thought, Michael picked up the shotgun and ran off towards where Patrick had come from. Patrick and the boys followed after him. They stopped once they got to where Michael was standing, clearly in shock. When the boys looked where he was, they too became shocked. In front of them stood Picasso, covered in dirt, wounded and weak. On the ground was the monster, the beast, El Chupacabra, defeated. The next morning, the kids lined up to get on the bus to take them back home. Patrick and his friends stood beside Michael, who was all smiles and warm spirits as he said goodbye and waved at the various children. Picasso stood next to them as well, bandaged from his fight. When it came time for Sean, Tommy, and Patrick to board the bus, Michael looked at them. His smile still there, but he now appeared weary. "Thank you, boys, for all your help," Michael told them. "Hey, it's thanks to you and Picasso that we were even able to be any help," Patrick responded, patting Picasso's head. "Yeah, but what happened? You sent us back to our room before the police or your workers came to help. Did they see the monster?" Tommy asked curiously as Sean nodded in agreement. Michael's smile faded, and he took a deep breath. "They didn't. I told Picasso here to drag the body away. When they were out of sight, I fired my gun and told everybody that it was a wolf. I said I shot at it and that it ran off afterwards." "But what about the damage to the barn and the wall?" Sean questioned. "I told them that the wolf and Picasso caused the damage with how violently they were fighting. As for the wall, well, a wolf charging at you at full speed and slamming you into a wall is going to leave some kind of an impact, especially considering how big I am. Besides, that was an older building, so its walls weren't as strong as the others. Anyways, after the police came and everything died down, I had Picasso show me where he took the thing and buried it myself," Michael explained. "Last call! All students on the bus! Pronto!" Mr. Osborne announced through a megaphone. Michael patted the boys on their respective shoulders. "Go on now. You don't want to be late." He smiled at them as he spoke. They smiled back and picked up their bags and started to walk towards the bus. When they got there, Sean entered first and then Tommy. Patrick started to enter the bus but stopped. He turned around and waved at Michael again. Patrick's eyes then moved downwards to Picasso, and he smiled at the dog. The dog wagged its tail and barked happily at the boy. But as Patrick started to turn back around, he stopped. Something caught his eye. He turned back around and looked once more at Picasso, and his eyes widened in surprise and growing horror. Picasso's eyes glowed a deep crimson.
Future Taibon by Rob Fields. I suddenly open my eyes and realize that I can move. I live. I can see that I am within a construction designed specifically to contain my body. With a simple and quick upward movement, I push the lid off so that it flies away and hits a nearby wall. I sit up and see that it is night. However, I can see everything quite clearly. I look down upon my lap and see both the wooden stake and the crucifix, the accursed objects that were used to both bind me and keep me imprisoned within this vault in a former lifetime. I stand to my bare feet and leap from the vault to land upon the floor. I examine myself and see the tattered and aged remains of my dress. How long have I been imprisoned within that vault? What has transpired during that time? More importantly, who was responsible for staking my heart and binding me? I must be patient. I currently feel disorientation, but I believe that will pass. I step outside the crypt and run my fingers through my long metallic blonde hair as the wind caresses me. Then I smile for the first time when I see the lightning flash. A loud crash of thunder follows. Truly this storm shall be powerful. Soon it begins to rain. A little at first, then I quickly become thoroughly soaked, making me truly relish my freedom. I feel that I have been imprisoned within that crypt for a great many years. My disorientation causes me to stagger a little, but I move through the burial ground in the harsh storm until I come upon the gates. I see the crucifix that binds the entrance. Fools! Before, a binding could only be used against me, and personally. I can easily remove the crucifix, but I have a better idea. I leap over the gates and land with the grace of a feline. The trees on the path before me sway with intensifying winds as the cold rains continue to soak me through the remains of my dress. For a time, I continue along the path until I reach what appears to be a dense forest. I enter it as the lightning flashes again, followed by a tremendous crash. The trees shield me to a degree as the storm grows stronger still. In time, I come across the remains of a horse-drawn carriage. As there are 2 horse skeletons outside, so are there 2 human skeletons inside. Their clothes appear to be just as old and tattered as my dress. After searching the coach, the only things that I find of potential value are some gold coins and a few rubies. I leave them with the skeletons, since I have no use for such riches. I also do not feel that it is right to steal from the dead. I exit the coach and continue along the path. Why do I continue to feel disorientation, in spite of my long slumber? Now I feel a slight buzzing sensation deep from within my head. The storm grows ever stronger. Then I discover that my hair shows no dampness, in spite of all the rain. I touch my metallic hair to find that it feels silky smooth. Suddenly I am attacked by an inhabitant of this forest, seemingly out of nowhere. The monster and I tumble over one another. Knowing that I must now do battle, I seize the creature with one hand and throw it into a nearby tree. The creature hits the tree and falls forward to land in the mud. It springs to its feet and comes for me again. Remembering that I am a vampire, I will myself transmorph for battle. However, neither my face changes nor do my claws emerge. The creature snarls and attacks me again. With lightning reflexes, I seize the creature by its throat and throw it into the nearby river with almost no effort. It sinks below the water and resurfaces shortly after. As I understand more, I can see that the creature is a werewolf, but with the tail of a scorpion. Not quite a manticore. The monster leaps at me again, colliding. Once again, we tumble over one another. When I am to my feet again, the werewolf swiftly lashes out with its tail and stings me. The pain is brief, but his attack has angered me. "I do not wish to do battle with you," I yell. I lash out against the creature and subdue it. I remember my strength from a past life, though it feels as if I am much stronger now. As I have the monster down for the final death blow, a sudden understanding comes over me. No, I am no murderer. I withdraw from the creature and return to the path to resume my present course. My disorientation becomes more intense, and I cry out when I feel a sudden urge within my head that causes me to fall. I lay there as the storm continues to wash over me. Have I emerged from that tomb just to gain a new one here in the wilderness? No, I scream. I suddenly sit straight up and fight to stand. I refuse to be a prisoner within my own body. When I am to my feet, I fall again. My disorientation and cerebral pains are too great now. And then, my vision suddenly changes and dims. Shortly after, I see the words flashing repeatedly in a language I should not be able to understand. But they read, "Initial system setup commencing." For a brief moment, I see nothing but multiple words and phrases rapidly moving upward. And then, I can see fully once more. In fact, I can now see the clearest that I have ever seen in my brief existence. In under a minute, the initial system setup is complete. I sit up again and no longer feel any pain or disorientation. I begin to understand more as other operations commence. First, I download and execute a full systems upgrade. I can see and feel all of the numerous components inside my brain receiving the most advanced updates, all of which are being optimized. In just under 2 minutes, I am at full optimal capacity and remember a great many memories prior to being bound and staked. Feeling that the system is awaiting my mental commands, I access my internal clock. The last time that I can recall through my memories was October 31st, 1887. The interface currently reads October 31st, 2099. It just does not seem that I have been entombed for 212 years, though I can remember many of the events of my imprisonment clearly. Analyzing these memories, I cannot produce a glimpse of whom it was that both staked and entombed me. Only the pain and being rendered unconscious. I look up to the stormy skies and let the rains wash over my face again. After better than 2 centuries, I live and know freedom. I must learn about this new time. Certainly much has happened during my entombment. For now, I shall continue along this path until I reach a place of interest. The storm continues to rage ever stronger still, with the winds showing their tremendous strength. My patience is eventually rewarded upon seeing a large structure in the distance. Upon reaching it, I see what is left of the sign that once identified it. Using but a minuscule fraction of my advanced software, I can create a perfect reconstruction of the sign. This structure was once known as Strickfield Town Center Mall. Immediately accessing the files in my limitless databanks, I learned that this structure was once a place of commerce that housed many shops, all under a single roof. I walk to what was once an entrance and enter. I walk the brief corridor to reach the main area itself. Walking the length of this former mall, I scan the remains of the shops. Though the mall is quite dark to a normal person, I can easily see it as if it's still daylight. My software recreates a map of this mall and codes the shops to it. Soon I approach a shop of potential interest and enter. This shop has many items of vintage clothing that I scan to my exterior measurements. Finding suitable clothing upon a mannequin, I remove the tatters of my dress. Feeling the rainwater dripping from my hair and down my naked form, I apply my new clothing. A short pair of denim shorts with a belt, an athletic red neon top, a synthetic leather jacket, and ankle-high stiletto boots. Upon seeing picture displays of various females around the shop, I decide to utilize handkerchiefs to secure my abundant hair. Now that I am suitably clothed, I exit the shop and examine more of this mall. Not finding anything else that I require, I finish my tour and approach a different entrance to depart. Seeing the still raging storm, I access a map of Strickfield and decide to investigate this area. Wishing to venture there swiftly, I will transmorph into a bat to be able to fly out into the storm. However, I cannot. I will myself to transmorph into a wolf, with the same results. Since it seems these aspects of my vampiric powers are no longer existent, I leap into the air to make a long jump. As I focus on my current destination, all that I see are vast wastelands. It seems as though someone or something has laid waste to this area. As I wonder if my imprisonment was the reason, my new memories are quick to say otherwise. No, my imprisonment was meant for just that. I must learn the reasons and those responsible. After one more jump, I land just outside of the area of Strickfield and enter. As I explore the remains of this village, I soon enter into what appears to have been a place of fellowship and dining. There are skeletons everywhere, many of which are costumed, as though they are in some form of masquerade. I'm quick to ascertain that in a former life, these organics celebrated the Earth occasion known as Halloween. My software also reconstructs the structure to show that it was a popular diner, once known as Denoyer's Grill. My databanks tell me that in the year 2030, on Halloween night, a powerful deity, known as Hellweaver, would conquer the mortal realm utilizing an ancient artifact, known as the Reality Sphere. A last stand was taken against Hellweaver, her daughter, and a high priest. Hellweaver would prove victorious and the entire multiverse would fall to her. As a result, Earth's natural balance was forever disrupted, resulting in these destructive weather patterns and consistent nights. Hellweaver and her greatly vast armies laid waste to Earth and either destroyed or imprisoned many of its people. From there, Hellweaver would repopulate the Earth with her own people of sorts. I was upon this world during 2030, but was still imprisoned within my tomb. The more data that I compile, the more that What has happened to me? Why have I changed so drastically between my imprisonment and now? I only remember a former life of being a powerful vampire and a Trailander hybrid. Now, I immediately call for the schematics of my body and how am I even capable of doing this? The great energy that I feel, the data that I see, the calculations that I can instantly perform. According to my schematics, I've become a machine. Truly, I am no longer organic flesh, bone, blood, muscle, and organs. There is completely nothing left of my original organic body. Somehow, I have been given a new body, comprised of metal, circuits, neuro-optics, processors, a power core, and a multitude of software. On the outside, I have a skin base that greatly resembles flesh, nails, and hair that can perfectly mimic the organic Earth female that I have now become. My abundant hair and my greatly enlarged breasts mimic those of the organic Trailander female. And yet, like organic beings, I am sentient and can feel emotion. But how? How did I cease being an organic vampire-alien hybrid upon my imprisonment and awaken to become a full machine? I desire to access this information in my databanks, but not yet. Not until I have come to terms with my new environment and what I now am. This post-apocalyptic Earth is the world I must occupy for now. In addition, I must call this new mechanical body my own. At least with my new flesh and hair, I can pass for an organic Earth human. But to live as a machine in a world of organics. Like organics, I have a will of my own and am quite capable of making my own decisions. Well, now I wish to know my new world. So far, I only see what has resulted from Hellweaver's onslaught. After finding nothing of great importance, I leave the diner and decide to explore more of the former village of Strickfield. I walk until I reach what was the heart of the village. There are only the remains of the many shops that the inhabitants had once taken for granted. I call upon more data in regards to the demise of this once populated area, and learn that the final battle between Hellweaver and the Chosen Six, known as the Battle Guard, had taken place at my location, in what was Gunter Town Square, a park. I gasped when I learned that one among those Chosen Six had betrayed their allies and joined Hellweaver, leading to both the downfall of the Battle Guard and the multiverse. Unfortunately, I have no data regarding the betrayer. Feeling anger and frustration over what I have just learned, I shout, "Are there no other life forms upon this world?" Faint noises are swift to answer my question. Soon I see movements from some of the shops. It appears as though organic beings are coming forth. However, they are in states of advanced decay. I scan one of the beings to determine that the decomposition has been relatively slow, but these creatures are indeed in a state of zombification. They all slowly advance towards me. In my memories, zombies would always ignore vampires since they too are undead. Now, upon quick analysis of my body, it seems as though I am miraculously no longer undead. Remembering that I can leap far distances, I do so, and escape the undead beings. The zombies mindlessly and instinctively reach up to grab me. I am with great sadness, and almost feel discouraged. But then, I am with optimism. There must be organic living beings left upon this world. There must! I receive my confirmation when I feel danger coming from behind. Very swiftly, someone attacks me and takes me down to the crumbled streets. As the zombified organics gather around us, my attacker turns and shoots at them with a hand weapon. "Begone, empty shells! This cow now belongs to Serathos!" Angered by his comment, I rise and strike my attacker. I belong to no one. This Serathos flies away from me fast and slides down the broken street. Upon coming to a stop, he is swift to return to his feet. "You dare strike me, cow?" He points at me. "You shall know what it means to defy Serathos. You shall know what it means to defy Serathos." And then, there are more of those werewolf creatures with scorpion tails like the one I encountered in the woods shortly upon my awakening. "She's yours, my pets," Serathos tells them. "Make this cow pay for her defiance." The werewolves give their battle howls before they charge at me. If they wish to engage me in battle, then so I shall oblige them. When the first werewolf creature reaches me, I take hold of it and hurl it far away. I am easily able to avoid the claws and teeth, even the tails. As I show these creatures that I am far superior to them, I am amazed with how fluid and swift I can move in this new body. To my memories, no machine has ever moved like this. But then my last recalled time was 1887. It seems much has changed by 2099. However, I've seen nothing in the way of advancements for this time. Given the complexity of my new body, I already know that it was not constructed in 2099. My new body is futuristic alien technology. I continue to do battle with the creatures until I have subdued them all. It is then that Sarathos decides to finally engage me, himself. Only he attacks me from behind a second time, the way only a coward would. "Now, cow, you shall learn your place," he declares. Suddenly, he clasps something around my neck, securing me as if I was his runaway property. When he starts pulling me to him with his great strength, I grab hold of the chain and pull against him. "You dare?" Sarathos growls, surprised by my own great strength. This organic despot succeeds in pulling me to him again and pummels me with 3 powerful blows. "What is this?" he yells, seeing that I refuse to stay down. He growls and pummels me again. Then he holds me down to allow a few of the werewolves that have recovered to return and sting me. With enough of their toxins in my system, I am compromised and rendered unconscious. I awaken to find myself in what appears to be a medieval throne room. My interface comes back online, then I see more of those words in that same alien language that I should not be able to understand. Translated to American English, the words would say, "Toxin levels, 0%. Neurotoxins compromised." Yes, it was the werewolves' toxins that had rendered me unconscious. As of now, I am at full strength once more. I see that I'm shackled by chains at my wrists, my ankles, my neck, and even at my waist. I scan the throne room and see other scantily clad organic females. I feel my emotions rise at knowing that these other organics yet live. Then my emotions turn to anger at knowing that Sarathos is keeping these females here against their will. "You've awakened," an organic female to my left says to me. I turn to look upon her and see that she is with injuries, causing my anger to increase. "What has become of you?" I demand. "Did Sarathos beat you, and why?" The female begins to cry. "I was to be married when Sarathos invaded our village of Pendleton. He burst into the church at our wedding and viciously murdered the man whom I was to marry. When my parents tried to stop Sarathos, he killed them in cold blood. Then he took me, my maid of honor, and 2 of my bridesmaids and imprisoned us here, in this throne room with these others. I managed to escape recently, but Sarathos quickly tracked me down and beat me harshly before securing me here again. As I examine the chamber more, I can see that we are all kept 5 yards apart from one another. Upon further analysis, it seems as though we are here for decoration, entertainment, and perhaps for non-consensual sex. If I have anything to say about this, I shall stop Sarathos and free these organic females. There is a quick silence when we hear a loud noise. Moments after, Sarathos enters the throne room, and with more organic females secured by chains. As the women struggle against him, he pulls back hard. "Cease your useless struggling, you stupid cows! From now on you belong to Sarathos, and soon you shall all serve as the yearly Halloween sacrifice to my almighty goddess herself, Hellweaver, which shall be in remembrance of the anniversary of when my goddess would conquer the entire multiverse." Knowing that I must not delay in freeing myself and the others, I fight against the chains that bind me. Bind me! My anger escalates into fury against Sarathos for imprisoning me. First, I would awaken to find myself imprisoned within a crypt. Now I am bound and chained for the pleasures of this despot? To serve as a potential offering to the very goddess that I shall eventually engage in battle with? Never. I said there is no use struggling, cow, Sarathos mocks me. These other cows have no chance of breaking free, and neither will you. I laugh scornfully at him. You've seen that I am not a normal organic female despot, and I shall remain free. With one great and powerful pull, I succeed in breaking the chains from the metallic walls. You dare? Sarathos yells in disbelief. He pushes his newly captured females aside to grab a very large golden axe from above his fireplace. He stands ready to face me in combat now. I have just finished removing the last of the shackles from my body and assume a fighting stance. Sarathos is easily 5 feet taller than I, and appears to have incredible strength. But I do not fear him in the least. Today you fall, I tell Sarathos. Suddenly he lowers his weapon and sneers. I look to see his pack of werewolves with their scorpion tails have entered the throne room. Sarathos wishes for them to engage me again, believing that I am far too insignificant to do battle with him myself. Very well, Sarathos. I shall again engage in battle with your pets, I concede. And after I've defeated them, again, I then shall engage and defeat you. The 5 werewolves gather around me like a pack of wild dogs. I'm ready for them this time. They growl and waste no time in coming at me. I remain calm, yet I move swiftly. I utilize my fighting arts that were learned from long ago in a previous life, and even fighting arts that I should not know presently. Nonetheless, I begin dancing with these monstrosities. These creatures are easily 2 feet taller than I and have great muscular builds. Seeing them only reminds me that this body is no longer organic. I am a machine. I am far superior to these organic creatures. As I battle the werewolves, I am quite amazed at how fluidly I move in my new body. My fists and feet strike with deadly force as I dance gracefully with these beasts. She is but a cow, you mindless cretins! Sarathos yells when he sees that his beasts are truly no match for me. Slay her, or I shall offer all of you in the Halloween sacrifice to Hellweaver. I move into the final act of my dance and render all of the werewolves unconscious. As they lay before me at my feet, I turn and gaze upon Sarathos. You must face me yourself now, coward, unless, I raise an eyebrow, unless you are afraid of a cow. Sarathos raises his weapon. I shall end you for mocking me this day, cow. His body now shudders as Sarathos begins a transformation into a more monstrous werewolf creature than his minions that I have just defeated. When he finishes, I witness that he is much stronger than he was when human. He utters a loud roar before he engages me. In response, I move and flip towards him, all too eager to dance again. Upon our reaching one another, the newly transformed Sarathos swings his golden axe to commence our dance. I cross my arms in front of me and slowly, ever so calmly, arch backward. The axe blade passes over me as a gentle breeze. I finish my flip and land gracefully on the heels of my stiletto boots. It almost seems as if I'm dancing barefoot. Sarathos growls and swings his axe with much fury. Truly, I see my dance partner now. He is with great arrogance and anger at believing that he could easily defeat one such as I, simply because I have the appearance of an organic earth female. I captured you once before myself, cow, he roars at me, confirming that he is capable of speech in his alternate form. Once I have lain capture to you again, I shall show the others the error of your ways, by ravaging you until you beg me for your life. Then your meat shall make a most tasty stew to add to the Halloween offering for Hellweaver. I laugh softly. Foolish despot. 1, you did not defeat me yourself. Your lower werewolves did much of the work for you. 2, I have had sufficient time to learn and understand more about myself. I am most ready for you this time. 3, I am not one of your so-called cows. In fact, I am actually known by 2 names. In birth, I was Mahari of the royal house of Rialos and was princess of Trelond, a planet many light years from Earth. Here on my adopted world, I was given a new name and rechristened Cassillia Taibon. Sarathos roars again and narrowly misses me as I gracefully dance a cartwheel to avoid his deadly axe blow. I continue my introduction to Sarathos. We Taibons have made it our business to eradicate supernatural evil wherever we may encounter it, and to protect innocent mortals from those who would harm or enslave them. For all I know, I may very well be the last Taibon in existence. And as long as even one Taibon exists, both the family business and the mission shall never change. And today, I laugh with the grace of my dancing once more. Today, you shall fall before a Taibon. Sarathos roars with intense fury, causing his yellow eyes to glow bright, and swings his axe at its hardest. Once more, he is unsuccessful in striking me and embeds his weapon into the floor to render it both stuck and useless. I enter the next part of my dance and begin showing Sarathos that he, too, is but an inferior organic. The longer Sarathos and I battle, the more he learns that this cow is not so easily overcome. Even in his enhanced werewolf form, he continues to throw his powerful fists and claws at me, but I continue dancing much too gracefully to allow him to strike me as he did during our first encounter. He makes his impending defeat all the more as he roars with increasing anger and frustration at me. I continue to perform my dance recital with Sarathos by attacking him myself and throwing and kicking him from pillar to post. At one point, I even lift him with a single hand and hurl him clear across his throne room. He breaks several of the large bricks that comprise the wall upon his impact and falls upon his back. Sarathos stands to his feet again and shows more signs of anger and frustration when he begins to telegraph his blows. He is clearly not thinking straight any longer. In memories, I can recall how I was chastised by self-entitled males because I loved to dance. I was chastised for my bewitching beauty and my greatly endowed upper body. The self-entitled males of the former days even chastised me when they discovered that I was both a Taibon and a trained killer. Sarathos chastised me for having the identity of an organic female, and now he chastises me again as I flip over his hulking form and land with grace like a feline. I believe it is time to finish this dance. I come into him and unleash a series of devastating blows. In time, I deal Sarathos a most devastating defeat. Now I stand above him, holding his hulking form down with one hand as I raise the other for the killing blow. Upon scanning his form, I only need to sever his brain from the rest of his body to end him. Your tyranny ends here and now, despot, I yell. Hellweaver shall not receive your Halloween offering this day, and on this day you fall to both a female and a Taibon. As I hear the cries of the females he's captured to end him, I have the sudden realization from when I fought that first werewolf. In a former lifetime, I would have indeed ended Sarathos and claimed his life. But that former lifetime are simply memories that I now possess. That past lifetime does not define my new life now. The females protest and chastise me when I release him and step back. Though a machine, I may be in this new life. I and I alone decide my own fate. While Sarathos has likely taken many organic lives and has captured many organic females, while his life is now mine to claim, I will not destroy him. In a former life, I was indeed a vicious killer. But today, I am no killer. The Taibon way is to save lives. The only lives that we claimed in former years were those who had none. Vampires being a prime example. That shall hold true for me now. Sarathos shudders and then returns to his original form. You should have ended me, cow, he sneers. Make no mistake. I shall be avenged for your treachery this day. When Hellweaver does not receive my offering, she will surely come for you and destroy you. I laugh a little. And should we ever engage each other in battle again, Sarathos, I know that you shall time and time again fall to me. I glare at him now. You cannot and will never defeat a machine. Then I strike a blow between his eyes to render the foolish despot unconscious. As for Hellweaver, if she should come, I shall stand ready to engage in battle with her. It is still the night of Halloween as I finally take my leave of the castle that once belonged to Sarathos and venture back into the harsh storm. The females have turned the despot loose for fear of Hellweaver coming for her offering. He could not run away from the castle fast enough. As for the organic females that he had captured, they have also abandoned the castle and have gone their separate ways. Many of them will return to their loved ones. Others will find new adventures or homes of their own. As for me, I am a Taibon. I am an avenger and shall continue in my present course of action. Before I can render a map to determine my next destination, my interface begins to flash in that alien language again. I will the interface to display American English and read, "Mission incoming." When the flashing ceases, the files have downloaded and are opened to me. There are several objectives to my new mission. The ultimate objective will be to confront Hellweaver myself and save the universe from becoming this hellish, post-apocalyptic wasteland. You would think and feel that I would have ultimately awakened in 2030 to engage Hellweaver in battle. Upon reading the mission files, it's quite clear to me now as to why I am in 2099. I have objectives that I must accomplish here first. Do note that Sarathos was not a part of my mission. Also note that I have stated that I and I alone decide my own destiny. While it is true that I have been given a mission, I am not bound to comply with it. However, it is my emotions and my secondary programming that will guide me into accepting the mission. Upon finishing my briefing, an updated map of my current location opens. I must ultimately reach Shore City, one of the last great cities on Earth that survived what is known as the Hellweaver Holocaust. I have important side objectives to accomplish prior to reaching Shore City. Currently, I'm en route to the Pendleton Way Station. I walk along what was once a major highway that is broken and cracked from years of weathering and disrepair, much like many of the intersecting roads that I've encountered. In time, I hear howling in the distance, even through the harsh winds that continue to accompany this great and powerful storm. I look up to the sky and am able to use filtering software to witness the full moon above the clouds. Truly, I shall not be alone for much longer. I am proven correct as a pack of werewolves reveal themselves to me and converge. They do not possess scorpion tails as Sarathos' creatures did. Just the same, they truly mean to either curse me, to assimilate me into their pack, or devour me. Without fear, I assume my fighting stance and give them a curtsy. "Shall we dance?" I murmur. The werewolves growl and advance towards me. Now, I can begin my dance. To be continued. Well, my spookies, that was one nasty little march through the food chain. Hellhounds, cryptids, chupacabras, mutant beastmen from the future. Tonight really did have something for everybody who likes their horror with extra teeth, and I do mean extra. The fun of monster stories is that they always start the same way. Somebody laughs off the warning, says it's probably nothing, insists there has to be a rational explanation, right up until the moment the thing steps into the light and makes rational thought feel pretty useless. I hope you had a good time wandering through all that fur, blood, metal, and mayhem with me tonight. And be sure you're subscribed on your favorite podcast app because every single Wednesday there's a brand new scary story waiting for you right here at Weekly Spooky. Until we meet again, avoid strange tracks, trust absolutely nothing that growls from the tree line. And remember, just because a monster sounds ridiculous does not mean it can't still eat you. See you around.